Chapter 1. The Blue River region was a towering mountain range. However, if someone asked where the highest mountain was, people would invariably point to one place. A towering, sword-like mountain pierced through the clouds on the plateau. On this mountain, there was a sect called the Spirit Sword Sect, which was second to none in the immortal cultivation world. It monopolized the resources of an entire region, which was why this mountain was named Spirit Sword Mountain. On the summit of Spirit Sword Mountain, in a small exquisite bamboo room, an old man with a sword-shaped hairpin on his head looked at the clear starry sky. In his hand was a bright silver sword. The sword body reflected the starlight, and the exquisite and complex grain was like a water ripple, slowly moving up from the hilt. However, halfway through, it abruptly stopped. The old man frowned. In his heart, he secretly thought that this was an ominous sign. The sword light is interrupted. This is a sign of premature death. Sect leader senior brother, are you telling your own fortune? As the voice sounded behind him, a barefooted woman in a white robe appeared behind the old man. She was holding a khaki wine gourd in one hand and a green bamboo sword in the other. She reeked of alcohol and smoke. The stargazing old man's divination was interrupted. He had to adjust his breathing and spit out a mouthful of foul air. Fifth junior sister, remember to knock next time? When I went out, I did. I'm talking about my door, not yours. The sect leader sighed again. Why are you looking for me? To borrow money? If I remember correctly, you still owe me 20,000 spirit stones. The sect leader said with a serious look. The woman bitterly said, AI, it's because our Lingjian school is too poor. I am the dignified fifth elder, the second most powerful person in the sect, yet my monthly stipend is only 500 spirit stones. How many months and years would it take for me to repay my debt? Senior brother, why don't you give up your position to me, then I can use public funds to repay the debt. Junior sister, if you really want to be the sect leader, then you give up your position to me? Senior brother, you're really benevolent. What I want to say is, if you want to be the sect leader, you should first give up on wine, women, avarice and temper. Go into closed-door training for 3 to 5 years. When you reach the Yuanying stage, it won't be too late to talk about it. The woman in white immediately pretended that nothing had happened. Senior brother, lend me some money. Tell me, who were you divining for just now? You look like you'll die young. Lingjian school, said the head Shixiang in a deep voice. The fifth junior sister's expression changed, and she put down the fight for wine and women. No way. Lingjian school is going to be exterminated? Not only the Spirit Sword sect, I'm afraid this sword light is pointing at the entire immortal cultivation world. Do you still remember the legendary Age of Chaos? Alas, this sword light is broken by 1/3. I'm afraid the peaceful days of the immortal cultivation world will only last for 3 to 5 years. Are we really going to spend 1 billion spirit stones to sponsor the Wanxian League to repair the 5 primitive divine boats? The Lingjian school's star diffraction technique is one of the few deduction techniques in the cultivation world. Senior martial brother is the best at it, so there's no way he would make a mistake. However, the immortal sword that senior martial brother used just now doesn't seem to be the Nian sword. The sect leader senior brother was taken aback. It's not the Nian sword? He hurriedly lowered his head to take a closer look. The sword hilt was indeed not engraved with the character Nian, but, the next moment, the deity stage old man, whose power shook the entire region, uttered a cry of horror. How could it be the tea sword? Doesn't this mean that there's only 3 to 5 cups of tea's time before the Age of Chaos ends? The fifth junior sister was also scared silly. The wine gourd fell to the ground with a thud, and the golden wine gurgled out, but she didn't care. Sect leader Shixiang, how many times have I told you that if you're nearsighted, just wear your glasses? You can't even tell the difference between Yen sword and tea. Forget it, now there's only a few cups of tea's time before the Age of Chaos begins. Senior martial brother, quickly hand over your position to me so that I can die a worthy death. Even if I die, I will not let Lingjian school be shamed. I don't want to die for a monthly salary of 500 spirit stones. I won't die in peace. During the quarrel, time flew by, and the last 3 cups of tea's time quietly slipped away. At the peak of Spirit Sword Mountain, the place closest to the starry sky, the bright starry sky was particularly dazzling. The stars in the sky slowly but firmly revolved. Each star was shaking in panic, just like the pollen particles in the water observed by the divine microscopic mirror. It was a strange phenomenon that had never happened in 9 regions for thousands of years. The martial brother and sister looked at each other with the same shock in their hearts. The stellar diffraction technique was indeed not fake. The Age of Chaos began to casually descend on 9 regions, ready to mercilessly erase everything in the immortal cultivation world. At the last moment, the sect leader Shixiang opened his mouth with a strange look. Junior martial sister, there's something that I wanted to say 100 years ago, but I never had the chance. Now that the age of chaos is at hand, along with the sect leader's old but magnetic voice, words full of true feelings were sent to the other party's ear. The starry sky trembled more and more violently. I think it's time to tell you what I really want to say. At the last moment, the stars moved, the starlight bloomed like a flower, and the night sky was as bright as day. A broom-like meteor streaked across the sky. It was the legendary vanguard of the doomsday, Halley's Comet. When the comet landed, the surrounding vitality would be exhausted, and the age of chaos would come. The Spirit Sword Mountain's great array to resist the astral winds of the ninth heaven suddenly trembled, as if the sky was about to collapse. The woman in white's bright eyes flickered, and the reflection of the king pill crazily rotated in her eyes. She casually dragged the upside-down bamboo sword and lazily slashed it upward. However, it brought up a curtain of light that covered the sky, as if it wanted to hold up the collapsing sky. However, the sky didn't change. The meteor passed by the 9 regions, and after the stars moved, everything returned to silence. The 5th junior martial sister anxiously controlled the bamboo sword to swing from side to side, sensing the change in the surrounding vitality like tentacles. It seems, it's okay? The woman immediately turned her head to the sect leader Shixiang for confirmation. Her senior martial brother's cultivation base was 2 stages higher than hers. Although she wasn't afraid if they really fought, he had more authority on the changes in the world. The sect leader Shixiang looked lonely. At least it's not the age of chaos. Oh, the stellar diffraction technique can also make a mistake? But it's okay. Senior martial brother, why do you look disappointed? It's nothing. It's rare to escape the doomsday, so we might as well celebrate with debt relief. After the doomsday crisis passed, the sect leader could only let out a long sigh in his heart when he remembered the surging excitement just now. In addition to that, he was more puzzled. The Great Change technique was not absolute, but the premonition of the doomsday was not wrong. Just now, the 9 regions was really close to the end of the world. The sect leader was at a loss regarding this crisis that came and went suddenly. However, he was certain that its influence was gradually penetrating the 9 regions. The old man looked up at the vast galaxy inside. His hand once again fiddled with the starry sword. After pondering for a long time, he said, "One who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later on. After this crisis, it's very likely that we will usher in the golden age of the immortal cultivation world. By the way, when was the last time we held an immortal gathering?" The 5th junior sister's eyes widened. Fresh gathering? While she spoke, she couldn't help but drool. The old man ignored her and counted with his fingers. It's been at least 100 years. The next one will be 12 years later. At that time, the world will change. I don't want too much. If we can recreate the golden age of 100 years ago, the revival of Lingjian school will be possible. When it came to the revival of the sect, the smile on the 5th junior sister's face disappeared and she let out a long yawn. To this, the old man could only smile wryly. We missed the golden age of 100 years ago. There are only 10 of us left in the golden generation. This time, no matter what, we must. Thus, the 5th junior sister couldn't even let out a yawn. With a cold humph, she turned around and left. At the same time, at the foot of the Spirit Sword Mountain, in an unknown corner of the Blue River region, a baby was born with a loud cry. Time flew by. The news of Halley's Comet passing through the 9 regions had become an anecdote. Few people knew that the world they lived in was once very close to destruction. The people of the Blue River region were only concerned about one thing. The immortal gathering of Lingjian school, which had been interrupted for nearly 100 years, would be held at the beginning of next month. The so-called immortal gathering was, in fact, a grand ceremony for the immortal cultivation sect to recruit new disciples. Joining the sect would open the path of immortal cultivation, and from then on, the path of immortal cultivation would be different from that of immortal. This was called immortal ascension. However, now was no longer the age of ancient mythology. In the immortal cultivation world, only the grand ceremony of the top 5 sects was qualified to be called the immortal gathering. The number 1 sect in the immortal cultivation world was Xingjing sect, which occupied the central region. Kunlun Immortal Mountain, which was known as the origin of the immortal cultivation world. 10,000 Arts sect, which was known as the Immortal Cultivation Museum. Royal Soldier sect, which was occupied by the most powerful army in the 9 regions. And Lingjian school, which had no people, no money, no heritage, and was listed as one of the top 5 sects by the Wanxian League. The Lingjian school had a sparsely populated population and acted in a low-key manner. In terms of sect power, not to mention compared to the top 4 sects, it was even inferior to the ordinary first-rate sections. However, the glittering signboards of the top 5 sects made people unable to look straight at them. Moreover, the immortal cultivation world had not held an immortal gathering for a long time. The news of the Lingjian school holding an immortal gathering had spread in the 9 regions 3 years ago. The age limit was under 12 years old, and other conditions were disregarded. Compared to the other sects that examined the family background and ancestors, the Lingjian school was simply too lenient. Thus, the world's ambitious youths heard of the news from the villagers of remote mountain villages, the sons of rich and powerful families, and even the princes of countries. The temptation of the immortal cultivation world was too strong. Compared to it, everything in the mortal world was tasteless. At this time there was still more than a week before the immortal gathering. The Spirit Creek town at the foot of the Spirit Sword Mountain was already overcrowded. The Spirit Creek town was the transit station between the Spirit Sword Mountain and the mortal world. Its resident population was no more than a few hundred, but now the floating population had exceeded 10,000. At this time, not to mention the few inns, even the public toilets had been set up with tents as an expedient place. With so many people and so little land, naturally, it was inevitable to bump into each other. Especially the only tavern in the town, the Rue Family Inn, which was a battleground. Bam! In front of the inn, 3 shadows flew out and rolled on the ground. 2 of them were tall and had nosebleeds on their faces as they kept cursing. "Little bitch, our master is the state teacher of Kanglan country, how dare you be so rude to us?" The young man, who had short brown curly hair and was obviously the young master, was being helped up by the 2 of them. He had a nosebleed as he stared in disbelief at the lady boss who was sneering inside the inn's door. He, Wen Bao, had never been beaten by his father. Unexpectedly, he was slapped in the face by the lady boss. The lady boss was not old, only 14 or 15 years old. She was wearing a coarse robe and a greasy apron, but her proud look was like that of a princess. What's so great about the state teacher? Even if your emperor came, he would still be beaten. I said this place is full, don't you understand human language? Right now, the princes of the great Ming country are squatting in the woodshed, and you, a small country's aborigine, want to live in the best room? If you're not asking for a beating, then what are you? Is the Kanglan country so uneducated? Wen Bao was a very nationalistic person, so he angrily shouted, "How dare you insult our Kanglan country? Don't think that just because you live in the Spirit Creek town, we are afraid of you. Don't make a scene in front of my inn." Before Wen Bao could finish his words, he saw the lady boss frown. Her body moved like the wind and her legs swept out. The 2 bodyguards, who were skilled in martial arts, were unable to react in time. They could only watch as their young master was kicked away like a sandbag and rolled down the slope. The lady boss was a businesswoman, and a businesswoman was kind to others and would not kill them. Her kick seemed fierce, but it was actually gentle. Wen Bao did not feel much pain, but his whole body was numb and he could not move. He could only roll along the narrow slope outside the shop. With the help of the bodyguards, Wen Bao returned to the entrance of the inn with a swollen face. Although he wanted to cut the lady boss into pieces, he didn't say a word, tacitly admitting defeat. He had no choice but to admit defeat. The Spirit Creek town was the transit station between the Spirit Sword sect and the mortal world. Under the protection of the Spirit Sword sect, not even a blade of grass or a tree was allowed to be damaged by outsiders, let alone the lady boss of the inn. In the past few days there were people who didn't believe it. The head bodyguard of the Yin country's crown prince caused trouble after drinking and was beheaded by a passing Spirit Sword sect cultivator. Even the crown prince himself was kicked back to his country and could never be hired again. Compared to the great Yin country, which occupied half of the Yuzhou country, the Kanglan country was indeed a small country. Not to mention, the son of the state teacher was far inferior to the crown prince. Wen Bao's heart was filled with hatred and regret. He knew the rules of the Spirit Creek town before coming here. Before the start of the Spirit Creek town, the registrant's family members were not allowed to accompany them, and the maximum number of bodyguards was 2. Moreover, they had to abide by all the rules of the town. If it weren't for the fact that the several of them were so tired from traveling thousands of miles, and the fact that the lady boss looked like a rustic and fierce country girl, they wouldn't have caused a ruckus in the inn. Now, he didn't know whether the Spirit Sword sect already knew about this or not, but his future was always clouded by a layer of shadow. The 2 bodyguards wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing this, Wen Bao sighed inwardly. They wanted to persuade him to apologize. However, as the dignified son of the state teacher, whose status in the Kanglan country was even higher than the crown prince, he actually had to bow his head to a country girl. It was difficult for him to calm down. Standing in front of the inn, Wen Bao took several deep breaths and gradually calmed down. He didn't think about the humiliation just now, and he also didn't look at the malicious and mocking eyes around him. These youngsters were also from noble families. If they were at home, they would usually pretend to be shrewd. However, at this time, they didn't have the discipline of their elders, and they were surrounded by a crowd of enemies, so they spared no effort in defeating their competitors. When Wen Bao walked into the inn, a smile hung on his face. However, that smile only lasted for a breath's time. Because the lady boss in front of the counter was also smiling, and it was a smile that was far more sincere than his. And the person who was smiling was a youngster who looked to be about 11 or 12 years old, and was dressed in ordinary clothes. Okay, a superior room. Please wait a moment, I'll have someone prepare it. Wen Bao immediately felt a kind of grief and indignation of being betrayed. A superior room? Wasn't it said that the inn was full just now, and even the prince of the great Ming country was staying in the woodshed? What's going on with this superior room now? But this time, before Wen Bao could speak up, the other people in the lobby were also indignant. Lady boss. What do you mean? Didn't you say that there's no superior room? I spent 1,000 taels of silver and I can't even stay in the woodshed. What right does he have to stay in the superior room? Even if it's Lingzhen school, we still have to be reasonable, right? Lady boss, give us an explanation. Listening to the noise in the lobby, the lady boss's professional smile suddenly turned into ice and snow. What's all this noise about? If you don't want to stay, you can get lost. Do you think I want to serve you, a bunch of good-for-nothings? The lady boss's bad attitude immediately aroused public indignation. Seeing that a group incident was about to happen, a kind-hearted local passing by on the street pointed at the signboard outside the door. You bunch of outsiders, if you're not blind, look carefully. Immediately, someone ran out to take a look. They saw that next to the 4 words Ru Family Inn, the person who wrote the inscription was actually Feng Yin. Feng Yin alone was just a slightly artistic name, but if the 2 words Taoist Master were added behind Feng Yin, then he would be a famous peerless expert in the immortal cultivation world. How high was he? The Spirit Sword Mountain was so high, and he lived on the top of the Spirit Sword Mountain as the sect leader. This was Feng Yin Taoist Master. With the inscription of the sect leader of the Spirit Sword Mountain protecting them, the crown princes immediately became a group of losers. A group of people were dejected and no longer had the courage to make a sound. However, the anger in their hearts could not be quelled, so the focus of their resentment was shifted to the teenager. The teenager who was doing the registration at the counter had a sharp back. When he turned his head, he saw that the person had delicate features, an otherworldly temperament and a long silk gown. Although it was not luxurious, it was neat and tidy, which complemented him well. However, when it came to temperament, how could the crown princes here be inferior to him? After a short moment of consternation, their resentment boiled again. The teenager raised his eyebrows. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, he coughed. It's not what you think. After a pause, he said again, I don't have an affair with the lady boss. As soon as he said that, almost everyone's mind turned to the same thought. Could it be that this person has an affair with the lady boss? This time, the anger of the crown princes dissipated a bit. Because, since there was an affair, there was nothing they could do about it. However, behind the counter, the cheeks of the lady boss turned red like a volcano erupting. Fortunately, the teenager changed the topic in time. The Spirit Creek town is holding a prize promotion for the Immortal Ascension Assembly, and one of the prizes is the accommodation voucher of the Ru Family Inn. Speaking up to this point, the lady boss also confirmed, that's it. He came here with a lottery ticket. You bunch of trash should just shut up. After a moment of silence in the lobby, someone stood up and started to pick a quarrel. The activity in the Spirit Creek town is clearly written on the flyer distributed at the town gate. I've read it in detail, but there's no mention of any accommodation voucher. Another person echoed, everyone has received the prize you mentioned. It's nothing more than some wooden carvings, souvenirs like amulets, but I've never heard of accommodation vouchers. There are dozens of people in this lobby, so why is he the only one who can get a prize voucher? The lady boss simply disdained this kind of question. She tilted her head and revealed a contemptuous smile. However, the teenager patiently explained, because this prize is hidden, and it will not be given to you on the spot. The troublemaking crown prince sneered, then why don't you tell us how to give it to us? Oh, the process is like this. First, talk to the old man who distributes the flyer at the town gate. He will tell you the story of the town and tell you the information about the facilities in the town, including the hotel, the inn, the grocery store, and so on. You have to listen patiently before you can trigger the next round. Hearing this, the Crown Prince's party in the lobby were dumbfounded. The old man at the town gate spoke vaguely, and it took him an hour to introduce the town gate. Who would have the time to listen to the story of the whole town? However, when the forest was big, there were all kinds of chickens. At that time, I also finished listening. The Crown Princes turned their heads to look, and many of them sucked in a breath of cold air because they had recognized that it was the second prince of the Grand Cloud Empire, Hai Yunfan. The Grand Cloud Empire was one of the most powerful countries in the 9 regions, and Hai Yunfan was the most outstanding one among the many sons of the emperor. When he was 10 years old, people believed that he would one day oust his eldest brother from the position of crown prince. Who knew that this second prince would abandon his empire and come here to seek immortality? Hai Yunfan's eyes were stern. I listened to the old man's story, but I didn't hear the next round. The teenager laughed. How could I tell you clearly what the next round is? You have to understand it yourself. After the old man finished his story, he would cough a few times and say that he was thirsty, so you have to give him water to drink. However, Hai Yunfan shook his head. At that time, I also gave him water. The teenager continued. Then the old man would say that after drinking water, he felt hungry. Hai Yunfan, yes, so I asked the servants to give him some of the dry food I brought with me. The teenager, he would say thank you, but obviously he was not happy eating. Hai Yunfan frowned. And then? Then you have to ask if he was dissatisfied. The old man would say that he was not dissatisfied, but he suddenly remembered the 1,000-layer cake from East Suppression Lu's shop. Then, you have to buy him 1,000-layer cake? He will give you a voucher? It's not that simple. After that, you have to go to Lu's shop's pastry shop, and the owner will tell you that the 1,000-layer cake is sold out. You continue to ask, and you know that the owner of the tea house bought 10,000-layer cake in one go. Go to the tea house, and the owner is busy playing chess with a guest. At this time, don't bother him with the 1,000-layer cake. You have to secretly help him win, and then you will get a 1,000-layer cake for free. Give the 1,000-layer cake to the old man at the door, and the old man will give you a letter of recommendation. With the letter of recommendation you can go to the mayor. The mayor wants you to collect materials, then go to the tailor's shop, then go outside the village, and then, finally, give the copper ring to the old man at the entrance of the town and you will get a voucher. After that, the hall was so quiet that only the rapid heartbeats of the Crown Prince's followers could be heard. They came from all over the country and held high positions. Although they were young, they had seen and heard new things. However, when they heard the story of the voucher, they felt it was unbelievable. If the voucher was deliberately designed by the Spirit Creek town, the designer must be an idiot, or at least there must be something wrong with his brain. Who could have thought of such a complicated procedure? Even someone as smart and careful as Hai Yunfan could only follow the second step. There were at least a dozen more steps waiting to be completed. Each was more incredible than the last. And the young man was not a normal person. For this voucher, he had been running around the town for a whole day. Moreover, from the beginning to the end, no one had told him that his persistence would pay off. How could he? Even Hai Yunfan couldn't help but ask, "You knew all this in advance?" The young man raised his eyebrows. "Why should I know in advance? Any qualified adventurer will go all the way to the end with such a huge chain of tasks in front of them." After saying that, he turned around and followed the waiter to the second floor, his back indescribably elegant. Hai Yunfan frowned. The young man's tone was so matter-of-fact, as if only the mentally retarded couldn't understand. But, he really didn't understand. However, this was no longer important. A superior accommodation voucher was actually not very important. The important thing was, who exactly was this young man? At this time, the young talents gathered in the Spirit Creek town, as long as they had a little bit of fame or even some special skills, Hai Yunfan had their information in his mind. But this young man in front of him was unheard of. It was reasonable to say that based on his incredible reasoning ability, he was not a nobody. Thinking of this, Hai Yunfan felt that this person was more and more unfathomable. It was said that in addition to the sons of the secular world's nobles, there were also descendants of cultivation families. Could it be? Not far from the counter, Hai Yunfan quietly glanced at the register and saw the name. Wang Lu? I've never heard of him. Wang Lu? In the lobby, there was no lack of people from the Crown Prince's party. Thus, the name of Wang Lu quickly spread in a whisper. Could it be the Wang family from the southern mountain region? I heard that there are many eccentric people in that family. That's quite fitting. No, I heard that the southern mountain region and the Lingjian school have a big enmity. The immortal cultivation families would never let their descendants enter the Spirit Sword sect. Or is it the Wang family from Xingjing sect? Instead of going to the Xingjing sect, he came to the Lingjin school to be a disciple? Although the Xingjing sect hasn't held the immortal gathering for a long time, it's not that difficult for the Wang family's descendants to join the sect. Alas, your discussion is just wishful thinking. You don't even know if that person used his real name or not. Chapter 2. The success of Wang Lu's performance made him the focus of the crowd. For a time there was a lot of discussion, but none of them could come to a conclusion. However, without exception they all showed a deep fear of him. If Wang Lu's performance was in a normal place, he would have been scolded as a psycho. However, at the foot of the Spirit Creek town, the accommodation ticket was particularly subtle. Do you guys think that Wang Lu has some connections in the Spirit Sword Mountain? This speculation was agreed by some people, and it quickly extended to other jaw-dropping inferences such as Wang Lu being the illegitimate child of the Heavenly Sword Hall elder. Behind the counter, the lady boss looked on with cold eyes. After a long time, she said with an almost undetectable voice, "A bunch of idiots." A moment later she said to herself, "I might as well double the rent, just looking at it makes me angry." At this time, a shout came from outside the inn. "Young master, young master." The main hall of the Ru family inn wasn't big, but there were at least a few dozen young masters sitting inside. Everyone turned their heads in unison, only to see a delicate and handsome youth of about 10 years of age stumbling into the inn. Seeing the youth, everyone's eyes lit up. It was not that the youth was stunningly beautiful, but the robe he wore was clearly the same style as Wang Lu's, just that the quality was a bit worse. He was probably the errand boy. Wang Lu himself looked a bit tricky, but this errand boy was much more tender. If they wanted to know more about this eye-catching competitor, this was the opportunity. "This little brother," a knowledgeable servant coughed to attract the errand boy's attention. "Have you seen my young master? He's about my age." "Oh, little brother, you might as well come and tell me in detail. There are so many people coming and going here, I don't know which one you're talking about." The errand boy froze for a moment and then nodded. However, obviously, someone didn't want to give these princelings the chance to talk. The lady boss knocked on the counter. "Your young master is called Wang Lu, right? He's already upstairs, 2nd floor, 3rd room from the left. Also, remember not to make any noise here." The errand boy froze for a moment, then hurriedly thanked the lady boss and flew upstairs, his footsteps full of joy. Young master, I'm coming." The lady boss flew into a rage and slammed the counter. "I told you to shut up. Didn't you hear me?" Then everyone in the lobby saw a jar of new Erhong fly out from behind the counter and hit the stairs under the page boy's feet. The little attendant was so scared that he almost fainted. He didn't dare to make any noise and went upstairs dejectedly. However, the lady boss's anger had clearly not subsided. She looked around the hall and quickly picked out the son of a certain grand preceptor from the crowd. "Oh, it's you, the one who was kicked away by me. You just ordered a jar of new Erhong, right? Come and settle the bill, 1,000 taels per jar, thank you." Wen Bao was shocked. "When did I ever order new Erhong? Just now when I threw it out to hit people. Why, do you want to order another jar?" Seeing that the lady boss had already single-handedly picked up a large jar of wine that was more than 2 feet tall, Wen Bao's face was aghast. I'll pay now." Putting away her ill-gotten gains, the lady boss's face did not show any signs of happiness. Her gaze swept across the lobby once more, and she sighed in a voice that many could hear. "A bunch of trash." On the 2nd floor, the attendant excitedly pushed open the young master's door. "Young master, I'm here." Wang Lu, who was sitting in front of the desk, raised his head in surprise. "Hey, why are you here? Go back quickly." The attendant stood at the door, wanting to cry but having no tears. He pitifully looked at the young master in the room. Wang Lu was also very helpless. "I remember I told you not to come." The attendant had a bitter face. "Master asked me to come. He said it's not safe for you to come to this immortal gathering alone. I'll be safe if I bring you along? Your surname is not Du. Sai, father has always been muddle-headed. I told you not to be muddle-headed like him." The attendant emphasized, "It was master who asked me to come." Wang Lu sighed. "If he asked you to come, you could have broken your legs and asked for sick leave." The attendant, If you don't want to make it so tragic, you can also drink Croton liquid. In short." Wang Lu paused and looked at the innocent and bitter face of the attendant. He shook his head helplessly. "Forget it. Come in." The attendant cheered and ran into the room with a big and small bag on his back. Although he was stupid, he had been with the young master for many years. He knew that the young master was always tough on the outside but soft on the inside. Contrary to the imagination of the crown prince's followers, the attendant and the young master were not from the royal palace, nor were they cultivators. They were just a pair of ordinary farmers from the Wang family village in the northern corner of the Dog-Ear Mountain in the Marquis County of the Great Ming Kingdom in the Blue River region. The young master's surname was Wang and his name was Lu. He was the son of the richest man in the Wang family village. Before he was 9 years old, he had the name Wang Tudi, which was full of rustic flavor. Later, after learning from others, he simplified Tudi to Lu. The attendant's surname was also Wang. He was the son of a merchant in the Wang family village. After an accident, his parents died. The kind-hearted old master Wang took him in to study with the young master Wang Lu for 7 years. 7 years later, the young master in the eyes of the attendant was always full of mysteries. He was always so incredible and incomprehensible. More than 2 years ago, the old master invited a teacher from the Hanzhong Library in the Dongdao Prefecture to guide the young master at a high price. It was said that the old scholar with a goatee had taught 7 or 8 jinshu. He was also a prominent figure in the Great Ming Kingdom. Soon after he entered the village, he changed the young master's name. However, after teaching the young master for only 2 years, he sighed that there were really people in the world who were born with knowledge. He had nothing to teach, so he didn't dare to mislead the young master, so he left. Before leaving, the old scholar said that the young master was a talented scholar. It was not difficult for him to enter the court in the future. Old Master Wang was happy that the only son of the Wang family had a promising future. On the other hand, he was distressed that the old scholar gave him 10 years of salary in advance, but refused to return the remaining 8 years. Unfortunately, the heavens did not follow his wishes. Although the young master was a genius, he had no interest in poetry and had no intention of becoming an official. As soon as the old scholar left, he buried the books in the courtyard, saying that he wanted to provide energy for future generations after hundreds of millions of years. He was even more arrogant. Meat-eaters are despicable, disdaining to conspire. Well, he didn't even put the Great Ming Kingdom in his eyes. But when the old master asked the young master what he wanted to do, immortal cultivation. Immortal cultivation? Old Master Wang was so shocked that he almost couldn't take care of himself. How could immortal cultivation be so easy? Immortals and mortals had different paths. This was an old saying passed down since ancient times. It was easier said than done for mortals to pry into the mysteries of immortal cultivation. Just the introduction to immortal cultivation, drawing qi into the body, made the vast majority of people disappointed and frustrated. Only those who had the fortune of heaven and earth and the fortune of immortals had the qualification to immortal cultivation. This qualification was called spirit root. In the 9 regions, there was not even 1 in 10,000 people with spirit root. In the past 100 years, it was even rarer to see one. It was on the verge of extinction. Rumor had it that one needed 10 lives worth of merit to exchange for a low-rank spirit root. Old Master Wang had done good deeds throughout his life, and now he was the richest man in the Wang family village. However, he was still 7 to 8 lives worth of merit before he could obtain the qualification to immortal cultivation. But since his son had opened his mouth as a father, other than using all his strength to push him on the road to immortality, what else could he do? Old Master Wang couldn't eat for a month, couldn't sleep at night, and lost a whole 10 pounds. Finally he found a way. Everyone knew that immortal cultivation was difficult. Fortunately, there was always a way. Legend has it that there was a miraculous elixir in the world. After taking it, even mortals could obtain a trace of immortal fate, which was to open their spirit root. This elixir could be bought with money. The second richest man in the Wang family village, Wang Dafu, spent 100,000 silver taels to send his son, Wang Xiaohu, to the 7-star sect to cultivate. Old Master Wang had been thrifty all his life. He was reluctant to spend money, but he was even more reluctant to let his son down. Thus he spent money like water. Spirit root development pill, 6 harmonies pill, 7 stars breathing method. The old man collected all the resources in front of his son, who knew that Wang Lu didn't care about it at all. Dad, you don't understand immortal cultivation, these things are useless. Old Master Wang blew his beard and glared at his son. I spent tens of thousands of taels, how could it be useless? Wang Lu was silent for a moment, and then nodded his head in gratitude. However, the next day he sold the pile of goods to Wang Dafu and Wang Xiaohu, who were thirsting for immortal cultivation, at a 50% markup. In the next few months, Wang Lu never mentioned anything about immortal cultivation. The whole family thought that this matter had come to an end, and Wang Lu's interest in immortal cultivation had faded. However, a month ago the news of the Spirit Sword Mountain's immortal gathering came to the village, and it once again set off a wave. "Dad, I want to go to the immortal gathering, lend me some money?" "What fresh food gathering?" "It's not fresh food, it's the Lingjin School's recruitment event." "You want to cultivate again?" "I haven't given up yet." Regarding his son's persistence, old Master Wang's choice was to take a new concubine. There was no other way. It seemed like he couldn't count on Wang Lu for his family business, so he could only give birth to a new one. Of course, for Wang Lu, old Master Wang still gave his full support. The little errand boy rushed to the Spirit Sword Mountain one day after Wang Lu. The big and small bags on his back were worth no less than 200,000 taels of silver. Even with the Wang family's wealth, it was still a huge amount. In order for Wang Lu to smoothly become an immortal, Master Wang had gone all out. His love for Wang Lu was so deep that the little errand boy was both envious and touched. In the room, Wang Lu suspiciously looked at the errand boy's bag. "What's this?" The errand boy smiled, opened the bag and took out a porcelain bottle. "Young master, look, it's a high-rank spirit root culture." Wang Lu slapped the table and stood up. "Sh*T, it's that pile of junk again? Throw it out, it's annoying to look at it." The errand boy was shocked. "How can I throw it out? Master spent a lot of money to buy it." "It's not the same as last time, it's a high rank. Young master, you also know that if a mortal wants to become an immortal, they have to take the immortal ascension powder. After 45 days they will develop their spiritual roots. However, if they use the spirit root culture, the process will be greatly shortened, and the quality of the spiritual roots will be more stable. Now there's only a week before the immortal gathering, only the high-rank spirit root culture can help young master have a spiritual root." "Ah, that's right, there's also the 7 stars breathing method. Master got it from the 7 stars sect." Wang Lu sighed. "That's enough. Don't take out the pheasant qigong and Herculean strength pills. Just take them away." The errand boy was stunned for a long time. Then, with a sad face, he said, "Young master, since you want to become an immortal, why don't you take these pills? If a mortal wants to become an immortal, this is the only way." Wang Lu sighed. "Yes, why do you think?" The errand boy tilted his head and blinked. He really wanted to say, could it be that young master needs to take the pills? However, there was a difference between master and servant, so he didn't dare to say it out loud. He just used warm water to wash the spirit root culture. Suddenly, the room was filled with the fragrance of medicine. The errand boy praised, "It's indeed a high-rank pill." Then, he continued to look at Wang Lu with anticipation. In the village, the little errand boy used this trick to tease the neighbors de Huang. It was tried and tested, but at that time he used bones. Sure enough, Wang Lu opened his mouth. "Wang Zhong," the errand boy quickly nodded. "Young master, please say it." "There's indeed only one way for a mortal to become an immortal, but when did I say I'm immortal?" Chapter 3. The path of immortals and mortals were different. This was an ancient saying that had been passed down in the 9 regions for thousands of years. Mortals without the affinity to immortality could only look up to the path of immortality. However, mortals cultivating to immortality was something that had only happened in the last 1,000 years. What could break through the barrier between immortals and mortals was a miracle created by an immortal cultivator 1,000 years ago. That was the famous 6 Harmony Spirit Root. The so-called 6 Harmony Spirit Root was invented by the founder of the Xingjing sect, Taoist Master Lu Ha, 1,000 years ago. Using a unique cultivation method coupled with heavenly spiritual treasures to refine it into a powder and continuously take it for 45 days, even mortals could have immortal cultivation spirit root, breaking the iron law that only 1 in 10,000 people could cultivate. Unfortunately, the 6 Harmony Spirit Root was even more inferior than the 5 Elements Spirit Root. Even if a person with 5 Elements Spirit Root practiced a basic method, they would at least be able to reach the foundation establishment stage after 50 years of practice. However, even if a person with 6 Harmony Spirit Root painstakingly practiced for 100 years, they would often linger in the 8th or 9th level of Qi cultivating stage. It was often jokingly called the experiential version of Spirit Root, castrated version of Spirit Root, or alkaline Spirit Root. This artificial Spirit Root broke the common sense that had lasted for thousands of years and caused a great sensation. However, the Spirit Root itself could not be seen in the public. Even if the immortal cultivation world could gain thousands of new people, what was the use of having a group of waste who couldn't even reach the foundation establishment stage? Even being a servant was inefficient. Therefore, after a short period of enthusiasm, people put this matter down. However, Luha himself did not put it down. The Six Harmony Spirit Root was just the beginning. Hidden behind it was a great opportunity. Other people couldn't see this, but as the inventor, Patriarch Luha, was very clear about it. At that time, Patriarch Luhi's cultivation base was at the peak of Unity stage, only one step away from the Mahayana stage. And in the immortal cultivation stage, one's lifespan was almost endless, half a step into the immortal gate. However, Taoist Luha didn't take this step even until his death. He devoted the last 100 years of his life to the artificial spirit root. Thus, there were the 7 arcana spirit root, 8 treasures spirit root, 9 systems spirit root, 10 directions spirit root. The effect became stronger and stronger until it was comparable to the natural double attribute compound spirit root, second only to the heavenly spirit root, earthly spirit root, and a few other spirit roots. With these, the artificial spirit root finally gained a foothold in the immortal cultivation world and gradually spread, eventually transforming the entire immortal cultivation world. Because of this, Patriarch Lioha became famous throughout the ages. He was as famous as Great Emperor Immortal Qin, who unified the 9 regions in the past, and Great Ancestor Dishing, who led the Great War between immortals and demons. Then, after 1,000 years had passed, man-made spiritual roots had become the most common thing in the cultivation world. Out of 10 cultivators, 8 or 9 would have man-made spiritual roots. Golden core and nascent soul cultivators were not uncommon. Even the deity transformation realm had been cultivated by quite a few people in the past 1,000 years. However, it didn't mean that immortal cultivation had become commonplace. Shengjing sect has been leading the immortal cultivation world to transform artificial spirit root for thousands of years, but the cost of high-quality spirit root was still astronomical. Artificial spirit root only solved the problem of immortal cultivation, but whether it was convenient or not was another matter. Of course, after 1,000 years of development, the cost of the immortal cultivation stage's artificial spirit root had been reduced a lot. However, it was still not reduced to the point where a mere several 100,000 taels of silver could buy a broad future. This price was only for the 6 Harmony spirit root. That's right, the immortal ascension powder that was regarded as a treasure by the Wang family was, of course, the 6 Harmonies powder. Once taken, one would have the 6 Harmony spirit root, and from then on, one could say goodbye to the immortal cultivation forever, except for the 7-star sect, which was like a Chicken Mountain stronghold. No decent immortal cultivation sect would accept a 6 Harmony spirit root as their disciple. Moreover, Lingjian school was a rare ancient sect in the immortal cultivation world. As the name implied, it followed the ancient method of immortal cultivation. The explanation of this ancient method was very cumbersome, but to be clear, artificial spirit root was out of the question. That's right, Lingjian school didn't accept artificial spirit root. Even the legendary compound spirit root, which was comparable to the 12-story spirit root, which was comparable to the earth spirit root, didn't accept it. The disciple must be a pure and natural cultivator, who was bestowed by the heaven and earth. The reason was simple. Artificial spirit root, after all, had its flaws. In the same stage, it was inferior to natural spirit root. Nowadays, in the 9 regions, there were many experts with artificial spirit root, but the top experts were few and far between. Therefore, many high-end sects were somewhat afraid of this. However, Lingjian school's persistence in the immortal cultivation world was no longer a beautiful story, but a fantastic story and even a joke. Because there was a clear truth here. If the quality was not enough, the quantity would make up for it. Even if the strength of the artificial spirit root was slightly inferior, 10 times the quantity could make up for all the defects in quality. In the immortal cultivation world, the survival of the fittest, the power of artificial spirit root was right there. If others used it and you didn't use it, then you would be digging your own grave. Sects could use the system to distinguish between natural cultivators and non-natural cultivators, but to reject artificial spirit root? That was the way of the fundamentalists. Therefore, the decline of Lingjian school in recent years was not surprising. Although it was one of the top 5 sects, its actual influence was probably worse than the second-ranked Wanxiang school and Flowing Cloud school. If it weren't for the fact that there were fewer and fewer sects that opened their doors, the Lingjian school's immortal gathering would not be so popular. However, more than half of the talented youths that gathered in the Spirit Creek town had the artificial spirit root. This was because the Lingjian school had clearly stated that those under the age of 12 were not allowed to cultivate, and the other conditions were not limited. Therefore, a lot of people were guessing, could it be that the Lingjian school, after being stubborn for 1,000 years, was finally enlightened? However, Wang Lu didn't think that there was such a good thing. If the Lingjian school was really enlightened, Why would they need to hold the immortal gathering to select their disciples? They could just find a few people with a good temperament and IQ, stuff them with elixirs, and the new stars of the sect would gradually rise. Moreover, when did I say that I'm immortal? The errand boy Wang Zhong was not a fool. Listening to his young master's words, no matter how unbelievable it was, he should understand. Young master, you have spirit roots? Wang Lu snorted in disdain. Wang Zhong was completely dumbfounded. Smelling the rich aroma of the spirit root cultivation in the room, he only felt that he was extremely stupid. At the same time, in the main hall of the inn, the princes from all over the country had succumbed to the lady boss's tyranny and finally had a rare moment of peace. However, at this moment, a creaking ox cart stopped outside the door. The old man driving the cart walked into the inn with a smile on his face. "Lady boss, the firewood you wanted." The lady boss ignored him. "All right, I got it. Move the firewood to the kitchen, and I'll settle the bill at the end of the month." After saying that, she waved her hand to chase the man away. The friendly attitude of a businessman was really touching. However, the old man didn't care and walked to the counter. "Lady boss, warm 2 bowls of wine and a plate of fennel beans." The lady boss glared at him. That fierce gaze made many people in the main hall who were watching the commotion shudder. However, the old man smiled as if he was bathing in the spring breeze. Then he took out 9 copper coins from the counter. Staring at the 9 worn-out copper coins, the lady boss did not kick the old man out. Instead, she put the coins away and brought out 2 bowls of wine and a plate of fennel beans. The price of the wine made Wen Bao, who had spent 1,000 taels of silver on a jug of wine, feel extremely distressed. The old man and the lady boss were obviously familiar with each other. The old man drank and chatted about trivial matters in the town. Although the lady boss looked unhappy, she still listened quietly. As for the people in the main hall, after experiencing the incident with Wang Lu, they all pricked up their ears and tried to find new clues. However, even after the old man finished his wine and wiped his mouth, ready to leave, no one in the hall found any clues. Hai Yunfan's face was as calm as still water, Wen Bao's face was blank, and some people revealed thoughtful expressions, trying to fish in troubled waters. Huh. When the old man turned around to leave, his nose suddenly twitched and he looked up at the second floor. This smell. Whose family's naughty child is this? He really has the guts to eat anything. The lady boss also frowned and sniffed. Spirit root development pill? That's strange, why is it him? Oh. The lady boss glanced at him, a distinguished guest staying in a superior room. Oh, a superior room? Which superior room? The lady boss snorted disdainfully. Do I have many superior rooms here? Then she frowned again. No, I have to go up and take a look. The old man was shocked. So serious? It can't be that serious, right? The lady boss pondered for a moment. That's right. If I go up like this, I won't have a good reason to do so. I don't want people to think that I'm harassing them for no reason. How about this, I'll go up to sell new or hong. After saying that, the lady boss stretched out her slender fingers, steadily picked up the huge jar of wine, and walked up the stairs. The old man was stunned for a while, then followed behind. The customers in the main hall looked at each other, but no one dared to act rashly and chase after her. That jar of wine that was half the height of a person could definitely kill someone if it hit their face. There is indeed only one path for mortals to cultivate to become immortals, but when did I say that I was immortal? Young master, you have spiritual roots? When the lady boss walked out of the door, she had already heard the conversation in the superior room. Her slightly furrowed brows relaxed and she laughed self-mockingly. It seemed that everything was just a misunderstanding. The fierce person who solved the 12 chain missions couldn't possibly fall because of a spirit root development pill. She was making a fuss out of nothing. Since it was a misunderstanding, there was no need to sell the 5,000 taels of Nuger Hong in my hands. Jiske, it would be better to sell it to that Hai Yunfan downstairs who had a face full of shrewdness. It would be a waste not to scam him. The lady boss turned around to leave, but the conversation in the room continued. Young master, may I ask what spiritual root do you have? Her footsteps slowed, the lady boss's curiosity piqued. Of course it's the heavenly spiritual root. Her hand trembled and the wine jar almost fell on her feet. Heavenly spiritual root? She turned her head, and the old man behind her was also surprised. The next moment the old man took a deep look in front of him, his murky eyes shining like stars. Then he laughed. Your aptitude is indeed not bad, but heavenly spiritual root? He thinks it's a big white radish. Chapter 4. It's a white radish? Wang Lu's eyes widened as he looked at the food in his bowl in disbelief. As the first rich second generation of the Wang family village and the man who solved the 12 chain missions in Spirit Creek Town, he only had a boiled radish for dinner? He looked at the page boy suspiciously. Do you have to be so frugal? Wang Zhong felt wronged. Young master, you can't blame me for this. You can go out and see for yourself. The prices in this inn are crazy. One boiled radish costs 10 taels of silver. Wang Lu was stunned for a while. 10 taels it is. We rich second generations don't lack money. The problem is that the lady boss limited the number of radishes. One person can only buy one. Did you tell her that we are the VIP guests staying in the upper rooms? Wang Zhong nodded angrily. Yes, she asked for 500 taels of silver for one. Then it's even heavier than a radish. Has the price of silver plummeted to such an extent recently? Wang Zhong was indignant. That lady boss has a good plan. She thinks people are fools. Now people in the lobby would rather starve than buy her radishes. Besides, she's not the only one selling food in the town. Then why did you buy these 10 taels of radishes? Do you really think we don't lack money? Wang Zhong continued to complain. The prices in other places in the town have been inflated. Now gold and silver are like dirt. 10 taels of silver for a radish is already a good price. Wang Lu frowned. Good price can't be eaten? I hate radishes the most. Wang Zhong said angrily, Young master, if you don't want to eat, I will. I'm still hungry. Wang Lu ignored the page boy's complaints. I want to eat meat. Carrots cost 500 taels of silver. Meat will probably cost 5,000 taels of silver. We have enough money to buy half a plate. I see. Wang Lu thought for a while and looked down at the radish in his bowl. He suddenly asked, Can the owner sell these radishes? Wang Zhong shrugged, Of course not. Only fools would buy them. If that's the case, then we will have dinner. Wang Lu's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but knock his fingers on the table. He looked more and more excited. Young master? Wang Zhong tilted his head, puzzled. There will probably be meat for dinner tonight. After that, Wang Lu grabbed his luggage, got up, and left. In the lobby on the first floor, the lady boss behind the counter looked impatient. More than 100 white radishes were boiled in hot water in the kitchen, but not a single one had been sold, except for the one that was sold at a low price of 10 taels. Although the nobles in the inn were good-for-nothings, they were not stupid. Even if they were rich, no one would buy her conscience radish. In terms of cost, the loss of the pot of radishes in the kitchen was negligible. However, as the lady boss of the Ru family inn, she couldn't afford to lose face. More importantly, she was afraid that she would lose a certain bet. Sigh, so annoying. The lady boss stretched her body and scanned the lobby through her narrowed eyes. Tsk, that big head from Kangling Kingdom is actually not here. Otherwise, he could have promoted him to buy dozens of them. Just as the lady boss was considering whether to use brute force to promote her to the princelings in the lobby, she heard the sound of footsteps coming down from upstairs. The lady boss's eyes lit up. It was Wang Lu, the one who had solved the 12 chain missions in a row. Seeing him, the lady boss couldn't help but want to laugh, especially when she thought about how he had personally solved the chain missions that a certain person had sworn could not be solved. The lady boss held back her laughter until her stomach hurt. Looking at Wang Lu's appearance, he probably had some ulterior motive. Unfortunately, there were no more chain missions here. Lady boss, I'm here to buy radishes. The lady boss smiled. There's only one special offer. No worries, I'll buy them at the original price. Buy them at the original price? The lady boss's smile faded a little. How many do you want? Give me 5 first. I want the bigger ones. Bigger ones will be more expensive. No worries, I'm not short of money. All right, 3,500 taels. I'll pay first. Without another word, Wang Lu threw all his belongings, a dozen or so banknotes from the great Ming Kingdom of the Blue River region, onto the counter. The lady boss waved her hand at Wang Lu. I'll bring them up for you in a moment. Please leave. Wang Lu didn't dawdle. He turned around and went upstairs. Only then did the lady boss take the pile of banknotes and slowly count them. What an interesting person. No wonder he could solve the 12 chain missions. His way of thinking was completely different from the noble good-for-nothings in the main hall. A certain person who was regarded as a heretic on the mountain could probably find his own kind. The lady boss counted the money unhurriedly. When she finished counting the last banknote, there were already a few figures in front of the counter. They were all servants or bodyguards of the young masters. They all had smiles on their faces, but their smiles were extremely unnatural. Lady boss, I'm here to buy. Lady boss, your radish is here. My young master wants to. The lady boss didn't even raise her head. 1,000 taels for one. How many do you want? The servants were shocked. Not 500 taels? The price has gone up. Buy it or leave it. The servants turned around to ask their masters, but without exception, all of them received an affirmative answer. If they were just being blackmailed, spending more money would be a waste. But if they could exchange it for a trace of immortal fate, then 10 million taels of silver would be nothing. Now it seemed that there was a reason for the ridiculous price set by this strange inn, just like the bizarre chain missions at the entrance of the town. In Spirit Creek Town there were opportunities everywhere. The members of the Crown Prince Society in the main hall were originally hesitant. Now that someone had taken the lead, they naturally followed suit. If even that country bumpkin could take out several thousand taels of silver, then the others could naturally take out even more. Then, I'll buy 2 first? I'll take 5. I'll take 10. Damn, my young master has reserved the whole place. The lady boss's counter was quickly piled up with banknotes from all over the world. Not to mention the 100 radishes in the back kitchen. Even the next few pots were fully booked. These nobles might not have much, but they had a lot of money, so much that the lady boss's hands were sore from counting them. It was naturally a happy thing for a businessman to make a lot of money. The lady boss counted thousands of taels of silver, but her smile was far less sincere than before. Alas, what a bunch of idiots. This time she said it out loud very blatantly. Midnight. Accompanied by the breeze outside the window, the soft rumbling sound was particularly eye-catching. Young master, are you hungry? Wang Zhong asked softly from one end of the room. On the other end, the young master snorted. Not hungry. Young master, there's still half a radish left. I haven't touched it. If you're hungry, I'd rather starve to death than eat a radish. Young master, people are made of iron and rice is made of steel. Since you're so concerned about me, go out and dig some wild vegetables and hunt a wild boar. How can I do that? Then shut up. After saying that, Wang Lu turned around and didn't say another word. The errand boy wanted to say something but stopped. He also didn't say anything. There were some words that couldn't be said. The young master complacently bet all his belongings, but now it seemed that he didn't get the desired result. Not to mention chicken, duck, and fish, even the 5 boiled radishes that were supposed to be delivered were gone. For the proud and arrogant young master who had never been thwarted, this new experience was probably not a good one. But, after all, he wasn't an immortal who could fly on a flying sword, so it was inevitable that he would encounter setbacks in life. The errand boy shrugged slightly on the bed, thinking that it wasn't a bad thing to teach the young master a lesson. Otherwise, the young master would really think that he had some kind of heavenly spiritual root and was different from the mortals. As he was thinking, he suddenly heard a knock on the door. While Wang Zhong was stunned, the young master got up and got off the bed. When he opened the door, the pretty and delicate face of the lady boss was right outside. Then, with 2 small hands supported by a towel, she was carrying a ridiculously large food box. Standing in front of the door, Wang Lu chuckled and said, "Lady boss, you're finally here." The lady boss replied with the same tacit smile, "I'm really sorry for making you wait for so long, but there's no other way. Those idiots ordered a whole 100 pots of radishes and I just finished cooking for them, so, your dinner has to be delayed." While talking, the lady boss had already strode into the room and put the heavy food box on the table. The box was not opened, but a strong smell of meat that could make one's index finger cramp wafted out. Wang Lu couldn't wait to open the food box. The candlelight in the room was dim, but the oil on the food was dazzling. Wang Lu wiped his saliva and praised, "Lady boss is really a trustworthy person, and a trustworthy person with good cooking skills." The lady boss clapped her hands, "You've helped me earn tens of millions of taels of silver. What's the big deal about this little peasant cooking?" Although the food box was big, the food inside was also very ordinary: braised pork, pork stewed with vermicelli, mushu pork, chicken wings. But at this moment, even if he had tens of millions of taels of silver, he still wouldn't be able to exchange it for this box of peasant cooking skills. Wang Lu placed the big bowls of food on the table one by one and called out to his errand boy to share it with him. Both of them were still growing, so their fighting strength was quite amazing. Not long after, they had finished 1/3 of the food in the food box. Wang Lu put down his bowl and chopsticks. Although his stomach was swollen and uncomfortable, his whole body felt refreshed. "Lady boss, you can take the rest back. Don't waste it." The lady boss raised her eyebrows. "What are you talking about? This is your food for the next week. I think it's a waste for you to overeat just now." "What week?" The lady boss explained. "There are still 6 days until the Grand Immortal Gathering, but you don't have much money on you, right? If you don't save your food, you can only eat northwest wind for the next few days." Wang Lu was stunned for a long time before he asked in disbelief, "Lady boss, what do you mean by this? Shouldn't you be responsible for all our food and accommodation?" "Ah, how is that possible? You're thinking too much. Even if I don't help you earn that sum of money, at least I gave you 3,500 taels of silver. That shouldn't be wrong, right?" The lady boss sneered, "With the current prices in town, you can buy this box of food with 3,500 taels of silver? Stop complaining and eat sparingly. The leftover food is enough for you to eat for 6 days. Think about that group of idiots who spent tens of thousands of taels of silver, but they couldn't even eat enough carrots. At least you can eat meat until the last day." The lady boss suddenly thought of something. "Oh, right. After careful calculation, there is indeed some money left from the money you gave me. I'll give you the change now." After a while, the lady boss took her leave. Looking at the old copper coin left on the table, Wang Lu couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Chapter 5. 6 days passed by in a flash, and the immortal gathering was just around the corner. In these 6 days, far too many things had happened in the Spirit Creek town. A certain mountain youth's fortuitous encounter in the inn had spread throughout the town, and the lady boss's golden radish had also become famous for a time. Young talents from all over the world had coincidentally begun to search for immortal karma in the town, and after 6 days had passed, no one knew how many karma had been unearthed. As for the initiator of all this, he stayed in the Ru family inn for 6 days with a clear conscience. Solving the chain of tasks at the town gate was purely out of interest. From the beginning, Wang Lu didn't put any hope in fate. With the heavenly spirit root, why would he need a mortal's fate to cultivate? Of course, from another point of view, after exchanging all his belongings for a box of meat and wine, Wang Lu, who only had spare change left, had no other choice, unless he was willing to wash the dishes for the lady boss. In the morning, Wang Lu was awakened by the noise outside the inn. The immortal gathering has begun. The golden bridge at the gate is about to fall. Countless people were shouting, and as they shouted, their voices gradually surged out of the town. When Wang Lu opened his eyes, the sunlight outside the window was slightly dazzling. He sighed, patted the errand boy to wake him up, and prepared to change his clothes, wash his face, and embark on his journey. When he checked out at the counter, the lady boss for some reason couldn't stop smiling. Even when Wang Lu returned the food box to her, the lady boss very generously waved her hand. "It's not worth anything, it's yours." Wang Lu really wanted to ask, "Since she's so generous, can you return the 3,500 taels of silver to me?" Of course not. Holding the broken copper coin in his hand, Wang Lu left the inn with a bright smile and a huge heavy food box. Along with the tide of people, he flocked to the open mountain gate outside the town. Outside the Spirit Creek town, the towering mountain was coated with a layer of pale gold by the sunlight. Among the lingering clouds and mist all year round, a golden bridge slowly descended from the sky. One end pointed to the ground, while the other end was connected to the misty Spirit Sword Mountain. The clouds and mist were like a blanket that cut the golden bridge in half, isolating it from the eyes of the mortal world. The small open space was now crowded with tens of thousands of people. The latecomers had no place to stand. Wang Lu woke up too late and was blocked on the way out of the town. He could only tiptoe and look into the distance. Fortunately, the teenager's eyesight was excellent. He could see from afar that the golden bridge in the sky was approaching the ground bit by bit. 2 young cultivators dressed in black and white robes were standing on the 2 sides of the golden bridge. They were standing on their flying swords and were firmly guarding the bridge. Looking from a distance, immortal cultivators did not have 3 heads and 6 arms. The 2 young men looked like mortals. They were not surrounded by colorful clouds, nor were they accompanied by spiritual birds and celestial music. However, the aura of immortals far surpassed that of the emperors of the mortal world. The space filled with tens of thousands of people became silent with a soft thud as the golden bridge landed on the ground. Countless people's eyes were focused on one place. Whether they were the sons of the emperors or the descendants of the immortal cultivator families, none of them could say a word. In the silence, the Spirit Sword Sect's cultivator smiled and opened his mouth. His voice was like the wind, passing into everyone's ears. "First of all, my junior brother and I, on behalf of our sect, welcome all of you to participate in the Lingjian School's immortal gathering." Then the 2 of them very calmly clapped their hands. Unfortunately, the aura of the immortal cultivators was too strong. Under the awe, no one echoed their applause. The senior brother was a bit embarrassed. He cleared his throat and said, let's cut to the chase. I believe that everyone has already inquired about our sex matters before coming here, so I won't repeat them. More things when you reach the appropriate height you will naturally know. Here, I sincerely hope that everyone will be able to find their own opportunity on this immortal path. At this time, someone finally opened his mouth and asked, "In the immortal gathering, as long as we continue to climb up this bridge, we will be able to reach the top?" The senior brother replied, "Regarding this, I can only say that I hope everyone will do their best on the road. As for the top, you don't need to ask too much. Then what position do we need to climb to be considered qualified? There must be an explanation, right?" The senior brother replied, "When the time comes, everyone will naturally know." When the time comes. Isn't this too irresponsible? The senior brother smiled and did not speak. However, the junior brother's face was cold. "If you don't want to come, you can leave. Who is begging you?" The doubters were so angry that their faces immediately turned red. However, they did not dare to argue anymore. Thus, the senior brother said in a clear voice, "Next, please follow the golden bridge and enter the mountain. Generally speaking, this immortal path will not be dangerous. However, if there is an accident, or if you are trapped somewhere and cannot hold on, you can call for help at any time. Our fellow disciples will arrive in time." The junior brother added, "However, if there is someone who deliberately wants to die, we will certainly fulfill his wish." The senior brother said, "Sorry, my junior brother has been in a bad mood these days. I am in a very good mood." "You shut up first." "You should shut up. You drew a bad lot and caused me to run over to do this kind of chores. You still have the nerve to..." Seeing that the senior brother and the junior brother were surrounded by thousands of people, the senior brother quickly changed the topic. "I announce that the immortal gathering officially begins." With that, the senior brother and the junior brother hurriedly rose to the sky, making way for the entrance of the golden bridge. In the next moment the crowd surged. Young masters and servants from all over the country crowded onto the bridge. Although the golden bridge was dozens of meters wide, it could not accommodate so many people in a short time. Immediately, cries and roars of anger burst out. What was worse was that many of the people on the bridge screamed and fell down after taking 1 or 2 steps. The scene was a mess. The Spirit Sword sect's senior brother and the junior brother were also taken aback. The two of them quickly flew down and separated the crowd. However, at this time, there were already hundreds of injured people rolling and wailing on the ground. The senior brother and the junior brother looked at each other in dismay. Their complexions were somewhat ugly, especially the senior brother, who was even more embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I forgot to say that after the immortal gathering begins, except for those who meet the requirements, no one else is allowed to step onto the bridge. Therefore all of the attendants please go back." So that was how it was. No wonder those servants were like dumplings in a pot. The funny thing was, besides those servants, there were also many young masters who fell down the bridge. At this time the junior brother coldly said, "I repeat, those who are under 12 years old, those who haven't cultivated, those who are faking their age, get the hell out of here." Those young masters who fell down the bridge were immediately embarrassed. Indeed, many of them were 13 or 14 years old, but they faked their age to pass the test. At this time they were exposed. Although they wanted to explain, looking at the ugly face of the Spirit Sword sect's cultivators, who would dare to speak loudly. Even if the two of them didn't explain in advance, which caused the scene to become chaotic, no one dared to blame them. Of course, there were more than 10,000 people present, so there were always some unusual people. They heard someone on the bridge angrily shout, "I am obviously only 11 years old this year, why can't I step on the bridge?" The junior brother immediately pulled a long face. "How do you know you are 11 years old? How can you remember the date when you were just born?" That person's imposing manner was suddenly deflated. "Of course my family told me." "That's your mom's mistake." That teenager was so angry that he almost vomited blood. The senior brother's eyes turned. "You are?" "I am Lu Hanlong from the Lu family in Yuzhou. Last month I just celebrated my 11th birthday. My mother, the sect leader of Flying Cloud School, invited 17 big and small families from Lianyun Mountain in Yuzhou to celebrate my birthday. This matter is known by everyone in Lianyun Mountain." The senior brother and junior brother looked at each other in dismay. Flying Cloud School? Lianyun Mountain? After being stunned for a moment, the senior brother suspiciously fished out a map from his sleeve. He immediately unfolded it and looked around with his junior brother. After searching for a long time, the junior brother's face turned even colder. "A small sect that can't even be found on the map, what are you so proud of? 17 big and small families celebrating your 11th birthday with an unknown character? Where did this broken sect come from? How dare they call themselves a family? Seeing that the junior brother's words were getting more and more outrageous, the senior brother hurriedly interrupted him. It's like this. The Golden Bridge was personally built by our sect leader. If you have any questions about the effect of the Golden Bridge, you can contact the sect leader and ask him face to face. The junior brother sneered. I think the sect leader will definitely have a long talk with you. Have a long talk with you? It's to send you to eternal sleep. Being smashed by someone with the signboard of the sect leader of the Spirit Sword sect, the Lu family's young master was immediately beaten black and blue. Together with his servant, he disappeared into the crowd. At this point, there were no more doubts in the tens of thousands of people's space. Seeing that the order had been established, the senior brother and the junior brother nodded and flew away, no longer caring about the trivial matters at the entrance of the Golden Bridge. The rest of the people also quietly and slowly moved forward. Of course, while moving forward, there was inevitably a lot of discussion. A certain errand boy carrying a heavy luggage was in a bad mood. He sighed. The immortal family is really different. Even the two bellboys are so arrogant. The young master next to him chuckled. Bellboy? You're really blind. If those two heard what you said, I'll be burning incense for you next year on this day. Didn't you hear what they said? They were sent here to be doormen because they drew the worst lot. Just now, the two of them rode on their flying swords and easily separated thousands of people. Is your doorman that powerful? The errand boy gawked and muttered, They are indeed very arrogant, but I always feel that the Lingjian school is not friendly to us mortals. When you were a child, when you poured boiling water into the ant's nest, I didn't see you being friendly to them. Immortals and mortals are different. Mortals are just ants. Even though they are in a bad mood, they still didn't start a massacre. Do you know that just now, we have actually sold ourselves in front of the gates of hell? The little errand boy's face turned pale. Really? Of course it's fake. You believe that? They are not evil sects or demons, so how could they kill innocent people? But, the Lingjian school is really interesting. It is very different from the usual old-fashioned sections. Although it is an old-fashioned sect, it has an indescribable temperament. It has its own characteristics. I like it. The errand boy sighed and silently followed the footsteps of his young master. The Golden Bridge of the Lingjian school was only limited to age. He was the same age as his young master and had just celebrated his 12th birthday. He happened to be on the qualifying line, so he inevitably had to help his young master carry his luggage to the end. At this time, he had never thought that stepping on the Golden Bridge meant stepping on the road of immortality. This road only recognized the fate of immortality, but did not distinguish between young master and errand boy. The road of immortality began with a single step. Chapter 6. The Golden Bridge was very wide. The team of more than 1,000 people, excluding the attendants, appeared sparse on the Golden Bridge. Wang Lu and his errand boy casually walked at the back, talking and laughing wittily unlike the others. The average quality of this team of more than 1,000 people was very high. Most of them were princes with illustrious backgrounds. However, at the foot of the Spirit Sword Mountain, they all kept quiet out of fear. It was not easy for them to stay calm on the immortal path, and it was very rare for them to be able to stay calm. Coupled with Wang Lu's stunning performance a week ago, he had attracted a lot of attention. While most of the people were hesitating and watching, there was someone who walked over openly and greeted them without putting on airs. His tone was as friendly as it could be. I haven't seen you in the past few days. Wang Lu was chatting happily with his errand boy when he was interrupted. He froze for a moment and turned his head. Do you owe me money? That person was also surprised. No, I didn't. Then why do I need to see you? I don't think so. Then why are you sighing? Are you trying to strike up a conversation? By the way, who are you? That person smiled wryly. Great people are forgetful. Then he cupped his hands and said, I am Hai Yun Fan from the Cloud region. 7 days ago, I met you in the lobby of the Ru family inn. Wang Lu frowned as if he was trying to remember. Oh, you are the young man who asked me about the strategy. Do you have any advice for me? I don't deserve advice. I'm just curious. Everyone on the immortal path is nervous, but you are calm and confident. I want to ask you about the mystery. Wang Lu smiled. You're here to ask about the strategy again? That's a bad habit. A qualified adventurer should be proud of exploring on his own. What's the point of chewing sugar cane? Hearing this, Hai Yunfan's eyes lit up. So, you really know about the key points of the immortal path? How could I know? I haven't read the strategy. Then, Wang Lu replied in a deep voice, Of course it's because of strength. If I'm strong enough, why would I care about the key points? To me, the path of immortal ascension is a smooth one. These bold and visionary words simply caused Hai Yunfan's beautiful face to turn pale, and she couldn't help but raise her head to look at the sky. Wang Lu also raised his head. The sun was bright, the wind was clear, and the clouds were scattered. There wasn't even a single bird. What was there to see? Hai Yunfan sighed. I'm trying to see if there's going to be a lightning strike. To boast so much in front of Spirit Sword Mountain, even if there's going to be a lightning tribulation, I wouldn't be surprised. Wang Lu was taken aback for a moment before bursting into laughter. You are Hai Yunfan? Alright, I'll remember this. Once we enter this sect, I'll remember to protect you. No problem. Hai Yunfan cupped his hands again and naturally approached Wang Lu. He walked side by side with Wang Lu, and the little attendant walked behind him. Wang Lu didn't mind. As he walked, he asked, I remember that you are the son of an official? That means your father is a high-ranking official. Fortunately, he's the emperor of the Grand Cloud Empire. *T. Doesn't that mean you have 3,000 stepmothers? In short, why did you abandon the promising path of being the crown prince and come here? Hai Yunfan smiled. Compared with the wonders of the immortal world, what's the point of power in the mortal world? As for the immortal cultivation, with the power of the Grand Cloud Empire, it's not difficult for them to send me to an ordinary sect. In the Grand Cloud Empire, White Dragon Temple and Merciful Cloud Mountain are ranked within the top 4 sects of the Wanxian League. With that, his smile became slightly sarcastic. But compared to the top 5 sects of the Wanxian League, a mere 4 sects is like chewing wax, not to mention. Hai Yunfan looked at the sky and sighed. Nowadays, except for the top 5 sects, almost no other sects can truly touch the immortal path. There are more than 10,000 big and small sects in the Wanxian League, but only these 5 sects have truly mastered the immortal path. Since I want to cultivate, naturally I want to cultivate the immortal path. Otherwise, I might as well live a comfortable life as an emperor. Wang Lu was surprised. You know a lot. Since I've chosen this path, of course I have to inquire a bit more. These are not secrets. Not to mention, among those who have come to the Spirit Sword Mountain to seek the immortal fate, who isn't well prepared? Trembling with fear? Wang Lu shrugged and smiled. He inwardly said, I'm not. My tough life is like a naked exam, what the *ck do I need to prepare for? The two of them walked side by side. The golden bridge stretched all the way up. It was quite steep, but neither of them felt tired. Gradually they moved forward from the end of the line. Looking at the teenagers who constantly passed by them, Hai Yunfan said, speaking of which, before this Spirit Sword Mountain's immortal gathering, the top 5 sects haven't opened their gates like this for more than 100 years. Even if there is an occasional immortal gathering, it would be heavily restricted. So this time it's really a gathering of geniuses. Wang Lu turned his head and looked around. Indeed, there are a lot of second generations here. This is enough to hold a grand banquet. Hai Yunfan said, these people are not only from illustrious backgrounds. At least, as far as I know, more than 80% of them have natural spirit roots, which are organic cultivators. What? The errand boy Wang Zhong, who was following behind, was extremely surprised. He couldn't help but ask, how do you know? Hai Yunfan looked back and smiled. Don't underestimate me, the prince of the Grand Cloud Empire. I know the names of most of the people here. Not to mention, without some real ability, who would dare to come to the Spirit Sword Mountain? Among the top 5 sects, the Spirit Sword Mountain and the Kunlun Immortal Sect are famous for being ancient sections. The Spirit Sword Mountain is even more stubborn than the Kunlun Immortal Sect. So far, there has never been an artificial spirit root in the mountain. Wouldn't it be humiliating for mortals to climb the mountain? While Hai Yunfan was talking, Wang Lu didn't seem to care at all. However, the little errand boy's face became more and more unsightly. Obviously, he remembered the spirit root cultivation in his backpack. Hai Yunfan couldn't help but laugh. But then again, in this immortal gathering, the Lingjian school only requires students under the age of 12, yet they didn't mention anything about spirit root. Perhaps they have changed their stubbornness? The remaining 20% of the 1,000 people are here to bet their luck. After a pause, he continued, but I really don't think it's going to work. While talking, the 3 of them had been walking on the Golden Bridge for a long time. Gradually they entered the clouds. Behind them, the Spirit Creek town had shrunk to the size of a cardboard box. The little errand boy followed closely behind them, not daring to look back. However, even so, they still couldn't see the end of the Golden Bridge. In front of them, there was no end to the Golden Bridge. Beside them, there were constantly exhausted teenagers who stopped moving forward. Unknowingly, the three of them had gradually walked to the front of the group. Wang Lu clicked his tongue and said, "You bunch of childs really don't have endurance. You've only walked this small slope and you're already exhausted. You've already been drained by wine and women at such a young age." It was just a normal teasing remark, but Hai Yunfan looked surprised after hearing it. He opened his mouth but didn't say anything. Instead, it was the errand boy Wang Zhong who was behind him who complained, "Young master, I feel very tired walking. I can't hold on any longer." Wang Lu frowned and said, "You usually eat a lot of fish and meat at home. Why are you as useless as that bunch of good-for-nothings? Didn't I just let you carry an extra food box? Why do you feel so wronged?" Wang Zhong felt very wronged and said, "No, this road feels very strange. We didn't walk too far but I'm so tired that I can't breathe." "Then breathe through your skin? Forget it, give me your luggage. You can go ahead with light luggage." While sighing, Wang Lu took Wang Zhong's backpack, food box and other things and effortlessly carried them on his back. "That's strange. Why do I feel that walking is easier than walking on flat ground?" "Young master, you've always been such a weirdo," the master and servant talked as they walked forward, but they didn't notice that Hai Yunfan who was beside them had a solemn look on his face. Without his luggage, Wang Zhong felt much more relaxed and followed his young master's footsteps. This time they didn't know how long they had walked in one breath. They were surrounded by a sea of clouds, and even the light of the golden bridge was somewhat obscured. The three of them walked in the middle, and they couldn't even see the edge of the golden bridge clearly. Most of the people who were walking before were almost overtaken. Only a few people were still walking in front, but they looked out of breath. At this moment even Wang Lu noticed something was wrong. Is this the road of virginity? People who have lost their pure yang body will get more and more tired as they walk? Speaking of which, Wang Zhong, when did you lose your virginity? When did I? Then why are you sweating so much? As expected, I lost my virginity. Wang Zhong, you're really good. The servant was about to kneel. Young master, please don't say any more. Hai Yunfan looked at them from the side and smiled. He said to Wang Lu, "You and the servant are also extraordinary. You've persisted all the way until now. What's so extraordinary about that? If the villagers can't even walk on the mountain path, they're worse than pigs. Moreover, this guy is the servant and he even needs the young master to carry his luggage. Who is the young master?" Hai Yunfan shook his head. "You're asking too much. Alright, I've been very happy to travel together. However, all good things must come to an end. Let's part ways here." What's wrong?" Wang Lu widened his eyes in disappointment. Along the way, Hai Yunfan wasn't the only one who was happy. Wang Lu had lived in the Wang family village for more than 10 years and this was the first time he felt like he had found a confidant. When he said that he would protect him after they reached the mountain, half of it was a joke but the other half was true. Although he was a mountain man, Wang Lu didn't treat Hai Yunfan as an outsider. Hai Yunfan nodded at Wang Lu's kindness and explained, "It's nothing. I just feel that there's no need to force myself to move forward. This is enough." Wang Lu still didn't understand. "If you don't understand, then don't understand. Anyway, I found a suitable position for myself." Next, Hai Yunfan walked to Wang Lu and said softly, "Be careful of your servant. He claims to be loyal but he's a bit rebellious." At this time a gust of wind blew past. Wang Lu couldn't help but close his eyes. "What did you say?" But when he turned around, Hai Yunfan had disappeared. When he asked Wang Zhong also indicated that he was puzzled. The clouds around them became thicker, and the 5 meters around them became indistinguishable. Wang Lu touched his chin. Could it be that he's gone with the wind and ascended to immortality? Come on, let's continue. I don't know when we'll end. However, they didn't go too far. It wasn't because they had reached the end, nor was it because Wang Lu was exhausted. It was because the servant couldn't walk anymore. All the luggage had been put on Wang Lu's back. But as they kept moving forward, the servant lost more and more strength. In the end, he almost lay on the ground and couldn't get up. "I say you," before Wang Lu could say anything, the servant hurriedly said, "Young master, you go first. Wang Zhong is useless and can only send you here. That's why I told you not to come at the beginning. Now you're putting on such a righteous face." Wang Lu helplessly looked at Wang Zhong, who was almost paralyzed. Finally, he shook his head and said, "Forget it. I can't leave you here alone. I'll accompany you to rest for a while. Alas, there are only a few people left in front of us. Although I don't know what's the benefit of chasing the first place, it's still an achievement." Wang Zhong was even more ashamed. He lowered his head and said nothing. Wang Lu didn't say anything more. He put down the luggage and sat on the ground. However, as soon as he sat down, the clouds and fog around them dispersed and the golden light dimmed. A lush valley suddenly appeared beside them. Wang Lu opened his mouth and looked at the sudden change of the surroundings. This is time travel? Chapter 7. Congratulations to the two of you. What the hell? What kind of evildoer are you? The voice that suddenly appeared behind Wang Lu startled him. He jumped up and turned around. He didn't know when, but there were two young men in blue and white robes behind him. They were about 25 or 26 years old. Although the color of their robes was different, the style was similar to the black and white brothers on the Golden Bridge. They should be Spirit Sword Sect's disciples. The two disciples looked indifferent. The older one cupped his hands toward Wang Lu and the errand boy. Lingjian School's Carefree Peaks disciples. I'm Zhang Ying and this is Lu Ming. Wang Lu let out an "oh" sound. Congratulations to the two of you for climbing the Golden Bridge all the way to here. According to the sect's rules, you can return to the sect with us two brothers and enter the Carefree Peak to cultivate. Wang Lu frowned and didn't say anything. Zhang Ying didn't urge him and silently waited for Wang Lu's response. After a moment, Wang Lu was still silent, but the little errand boy softly said, Immortal, you mean, we have been accepted by your sect? Zhang Ying nodded. Yes, that's right. Lu Ming added, the Golden Bridge was personally built by the sect leader to judge the aptitude of a cultivator. The better the aptitude, the farther you can go on the bridge. To be able to reach here means that you have reached the entry standard. The errand boy froze for a moment and then became ecstatic. Is this true? Of course it's true. Young master, did you hear that? We have succeeded. We have been accepted by the Lingjian School. Wang Lu shook his head. Excuse me, the two people who fell on the Golden Bridge are? Zhang Ying's face was slightly unnatural. Them? They are the Misty Peak senior brothers. Misty Peak? Carefree Peak? What's the difference? Zhang Ying's face sank. Why are you asking so many questions? Lu Ming wryly smiled and said, Senior martial brother, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. From the outside, the Spirit Sword Mountain looks like a lone peak, but in fact it has many peaks. The so-called Carefree Peak is actually the outer sect of the Spirit Sword Mountain, while the Misty Peak is the inner sect. Those two senior martial brothers can't be compared to us. Wang Lu smiled. That's what I said, the two black and white students are obviously more arrogant than the two blue and white students. Then he was a little suspicious. But Lingjian School only relies on that Golden Bridge to recruit new students? Once he reached here he would enter the outer sect and then what? If I can reach the end in one go, will I be able to enter the inner sect? LV Ming said, of course it's impossible. The Lingjian School's inner gate selection is extremely strict. Aptitude, temperament and immortal fate must all be above the standard. Otherwise, just based on aptitude alone, even if you have a heavenly spiritual root, you probably won't be able to enter the eyes of the Misty Peak Master. Wang Lu, F***CK what? Wang Lu smiled, it's nothing. So, for new students like us, what's the problem if we want to enter the inner sect? Zhang Ying coldly snorted, you want to enter the Misty Peak? That's easy. Look, straight ahead from here is the Misty Peak. If you can reach it, the Misty Peak Master will naturally accept you. Wang Lu looked at the direction where Zhang Ying's finger pointed. In the long narrow valley ahead, there was another cloud of mist blocking the way. How far is it? LV Ming smiled, that depends on fate. Maybe it's very far or maybe it's right in front of you. The immortal path is always unpredictable. Zhang Ying asked, what are you going to choose? Do you want to go back to the Carefree Peak with us? Or do you want to continue on this immortal path? I'll tell you in advance, if you miss this village you won't get another chance. Wang Lu said, so, if you choose to continue you can only go all the way to the Misty Peak? Zhang Ying sneered, that's right. Either go all the way to the Misty Peak and enter the Spirit Sword sect, or the immortal path ends here and you return to the mortal world. Since you look down on our Carefree Peak, don't expect us to be your guarantee. Although the Carefree Peak is an outer sect, we don't want sugar cane chewed by other people. Do you have to be so serious? I don't think you're third-class citizens of Spirit Sword sect, good-for-nothings who can't reach a high position, can't reach a low position. What did you say? Wang Lu shrugged. In short, since we're already here and we know that the immortal path is not finished, of course, we have to go all the way. Humph, don't regret it. Don't think that just because the Carefree Peak is an outer sect disciple, our big brother is not inferior to the successor disciples. Among the 1,000 people here, only 1 out of 10 can reach here. Cherish your opportunity. At this time the errand boy also nodded and said, "Young master, how about we go to the Carefree Peak? If you want to go, then go. There's no need to ask for my permission." Ah? The errand boy's face suddenly turned bitter. "Young master, I was specially sent by the master to take care of you. How can I leave you alone?" Wang Lu smiled, looked at the errand boy's wrinkled face, opened his mouth and finally shook his head, saying, "In short, I want to go forward. If you want to follow me, then follow me." Zhang Ying glanced at the two of them. "You two don't regret it? Let me remind you first, the second half of the immortal path is far more difficult than you can imagine. In the past 300 years there hasn't been a successful case. In the past immortal gathering, the number of disciples recruited was limited to the Carefree Peak. The way the Lingjian school recruits inner court disciples is that the elders go out to travel and look for the immortal fate. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 100 years they can find a good seedling. But the immortal path is almost impossible. It doesn't matter, I have been a professional adventurer for dozens of years. My nickname is the Immortal Awakening Dew, so there's no need to worry about the difficulties and dangers." Zhang Ying turned his head. That's all I have to say, you're on your own." Wang Lu laughed and then waved to Lu Ming, saying, "Then senior brother Lu Ming, I look forward to seeing you in the mountain gate in the future." Lu Ming also laughed. "I have seen a few new disciples before, but none of them are as friendly as you." "Alright, then I will say one more thing, the immortal path is not normal, every blade of grass and every tree is predestined." "Are you mocking me for being merciful?" "Haha, what do you mean? Go figure it out yourself. If I say more, I will be punished by master. Good luck." Zhang Ying pulled his junior brother. "Enough, I can't explain to you anymore. The next wave is coming, get ready to meet them." While talking, the two stretched out their hands to tear the mountain mist around their ankles, and then slowly flew out of the valley and disappeared. In the valley, Wang Lu and Wang Zhong looked at each other in dismay. "Young master, is it really good to give up like this?" "Of course not, who said I am going to give up? The test behind the Carefree Peak can make all the heroes in the world helpless for more than 300 years. If you don't see it with your own eyes, will you be satisfied?" However, the errand boy nodded very disappointedly. "I am willing, very willing. Young master, I have never dreamed that you could reach this step. When you said you wanted to participate in the immortal gathering of Lingjian school, everyone in the village thought you were crazy. Before I left, master told me that if I was eliminated, I could go to the nearby big city with young master to relax. Who would have thought that, young master, you actually reached this step?" "Which step?" "The real immortal path has just begun, okay?" Looking at the puzzled look in the errand boy's eyes, Wang Lu made an exception and explained to him his own experience. "There are 3 main points. The first is what Lan Bai said just now. The immortal path tests many factors such as aptitude, temperament, and opportunity. Now we have just passed the test of aptitude. No, it is not even a real test of aptitude. We just crossed the threshold that we have to pass. How can you say that the immortal path has reached this step?" But the Carefree Peak has already opened its doors? Don't be silly. The second point, Lan Bai just said that the senior brother of the Carefree Peak is not much worse than the inherited disciples. Even if it is an exaggeration, he should still be an excellent talent. But why does such an excellent senior brother stay in the Carefree Peak? Why not the Misty Peak? Why? Just like the other people who think that they are very great and think that joining the Carefree Peak is already a great honor, because this is the limit of their ability. You chose the easy difficulty, so don't complain that you can't see the hidden plot. Forget it, you won't understand even if I tell you. Next, the third point. Wang Lu raised his head. His eyes became deep in the clouds, and there seemed to be a flame burning in his pupils. As an adventurer, you should have the momentum to break through the clouds and the sky and get through all difficulties. Anyway, I must go on. Whether I follow you or not, those 2 Lan Bai have already left. You can't go back even if you want to, As Wang Lu said this, he picked up his luggage again and strode forward. In addition, Wang Zhong, the next journey is going to be super long. Be prepared. Wang Zhong, who was a little tired, asked, "How long?" If we use a storybook as an analogy, it is about 70,000 to 80,000 words. That is really, really long. The Misty Peak is not as easy as the Spirit Sword Golden Bridge. Above the boundless sea of clouds, a white-haired old man stroked his beard and said, "Senior brother sect leader set up today's meeting 12 years ago. Heroes from all over the world have gathered here, and it is indeed extraordinary. There are nearly 100 people who have passed 4/5 of the Golden Bridge, and they are all geniuses who can enter the carefree peak by virtue of their spiritual roots. A young cultivator in a black and white robe beside him said with a smile, "Master, do you already have a candidate in mind?" The old man said disdainfully, "Humph, passing the Golden Bridge only shows that the quality of their spiritual roots is not bad, but it is not that easy to enter the misty peak. Among these 100 people, it will be good if there are only 10 left." While talking, a voice suddenly appeared behind him. "Alas, there is no need to be so strict." Above the clouds, the two cultivators, one old and one young, were startled. When they turned their heads, they were even more frightened. Senior brother sect leader? The one who suddenly appeared behind them was the leader of the Lingjian school, Feng Yin Taoist master. "Yo, don't be so nervous." Feng Yin Taoist master smiled and waved his hand. "I just came to have a look. Behind the Golden Bridge is your misty peak, junior brother Lucien, which is the backbone of our sect." Lucien looked serious, lowered his head and said, "Senior brother entrusted me with such an important task. Lucien will not dare to neglect it. You have worked hard these years. Look at the grand occasion of the misty peak now. It is really hard to imagine the scene in the past. However, since we have specially held this meeting, there is no need to be too strict with the newcomers. If there is anyone you like, just accept them." Lucien was a little embarrassed. "Senior brother, that is against the rules." "Oh, the rules are set according to the situation. The number of people in the Lingjian school has been declining for a long time. Don't you think it should be lively?" "To be honest, I don't think it is lively enough with fifth junior sister. Let's not talk about her. I asked her to help me design the Immortal Gathering, but she made a mess of it. These days my brain is about to explode. I have an impression of this child. His aptitude is quite good and he is worth paying attention to." As he said this, the immortal pointed at the clouds, and two illusionary little people came to life. They were the master and servant from the Wang family village. Lucien was very surprised. "Senior brother, you think highly of them?" "Well, their results on the Golden Bridge are really good." "Oh, the Golden Bridge is just a small thing I made casually, don't take it too seriously." "Senior brother, you are too modest. The Golden Bridge can precisely control the innate spiritual energy. The higher the quality of the spiritual root, the easier it is to get natural spiritual energy, so it is easy to walk on the bridge. However, the further you walk, the stronger the resistance. When the resistance is equal to the help, you can judge a person's best position. Although you can also overdraft your physical strength and continue to walk. If you consume too much physical strength on the Golden Bridge, you will not be able to walk the rest of the road. Although the principle is simple, the design is really clever, and it is the best for preliminary judgment of aptitude. With the results of these two people, senior brother should look at them in a different light." Actually, it's not me, it's little Ling Er who thinks highly of one of them. It is said that he solved that damn chain of tasks. His aptitude is similar to what I saw before, between the 3rd and 4th level, not bad. Then, it doesn't matter, just follow the rules of the Misty Peak. How far he can go will depend on his ability." While speaking, a burning sword talisman suddenly appeared, almost igniting the sect leader's beard. "Hey, who is this? You have nothing better to do, using the spirit sword heavenly talisman to find me? Sure enough, it's you. What are you doing? Is it the end of the world? Is the demon race invading? What? Overtime pay? You want overtime pay for the Immortal Gathering? Do you have any shame? Forget it, we can talk when we meet." "Ouch, I'm so angry, my primordial spirit is about to collapse." Feng Yin Taoist master took a few moments to calm his anger. However, when he turned his head, his field of vision was thousands of miles of clear sky, and the clouds and mist that surrounded the mountain range were unexpectedly dispersed. The young spirit sword sect's cultivator was aghast, but Lucien showed a look of sincere admiration. Sect leader's cultivation base is unparalleled. Just a little bit of your residual power was able to break the Misty Peak's Misty Cloud array. Junior brother is sincerely convinced. I've only broken through the 1st level, not to mention a mere deity stage is nothing in the 9 regions. 10 years ago when I went to the Union of 10,000 Immortals for a meeting, several standing committee members were already in the Unity stage. Humph, a demonstration? Demonstration my ass, I slept from the beginning to the end. Forget it, let's not talk too much, I'll go first. Otherwise, if junior sister burns a few more heavenly talismans, I'll go bankrupt. Junior brother, I'll leave the Immortal Gathering to you. Don't mind what I said, just follow the rules. With that, the sect leader turned into a beam of light and left. Lucien sighed. Through the Misty Peak's great cloud array, he saw the master and servant pair walking in the canyon. Both the sect leader and little Ling Er fancied them? Although the sect leader said that everything should be done according to the rules, this kind of courtesy itself had already broken the rules. Pay attention to those two people, I hope they won't let me down. Then we'll prepare for the logistics work. The black and white cultivator nodded and was about to leave. Oh, by the way, remember to tell your junior brothers to bring spirit stones and sword manuals. Alas, bring mahjong as well. This immortal gathering will probably last for a long time, don't make it too boring. Master. Hehe, remember to call your martial uncle Zhou Ming. Last time, their brilliant peak won more than 10 magical treasures from us. This time I'll help you win it back. Master? Chapter 8. This road is really King long. In the long and narrow valley, both master and servant were panting a little. Wang Lu wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, Alas, I can't feel the abundant help from the Golden Bridge, even the luggage has become a little heavier. The servant sighed and said, What help, young master, are you confused? Yes, I'm so tired that I'm confused, so you carry the luggage? While talking, Wang Lu suddenly became excited. He pointed to the front and said, Look, the fog around us is getting thicker. This is obviously the sign of entering a new map. As usual, the servant was confused. What do you mean by entering a new map? Wang Lu explained, You don't think that the immortal path is a simple straight line, do you? There must be a lot of checkpoints in the middle to test a person's various qualities. If it's the root bone and knowledge, it's fine. A golden bridge and a piece of paper can test the depth of a person. But how can a person's temperament and fate be tested? Was it a written test, a quiz card, or a personality test? If Lingjian School wants to fully test the newcomers, it has to design sufficiently complicated scenes on the immortal path. This kind of scene may be an ordinary scene or it may be an independent plane like a dungeon. And the fog around us is very likely to be the buffer zone for changing maps. Young master, I have no idea what you are talking about. However, it seemed that Wang Lu did not care whether the servant understood or not. He continued to explain, Lingjian School is a famous ancient sect. The selection of disciples is very strict. In addition, the number of disciples is sparse. Generally, the elders in the sect go down the mountain to find disciples. The sect is not suitable for the mass production of the Immortal Path Assembly. That's why the opening of the mountain gate this time attracted so many people. But ancient sects are ancient sections. Even if it is a mass production ceremony, they will not accommodate it. The necessary procedures will definitely be more complicated than ordinary people think. Hearing this, the servant could not help but ask, Young master, how do you know about the Lingjian School? In fact, the young master had only arrived at the Spirit Creek town one day earlier. He had been staying in his room for a week. Where did he get so much information? Was it true that the star of literati had descended to the mortal world and was born with knowledge? Of course it was when I was doing the chain quests. Do you think I was just doing quests in the town that day? I listened carefully to the brief introduction of each mission point. Nowadays, many players were eager for quick success and did not care about anything other than quest objectives and quest rewards. Little did they know that what was truly valuable was the quest introduction. For example, when I completed the final segment, the old man at the gate would say that this was the first time that Lingjian School had organized an immortal gathering in the past 100 years, so they didn't have any experience. However, because they didn't have any experience, they put in a lot of effort. Even an old man like him, who had retired for many years, was hired to guard the town's gate. The amount of information in this was astonishing. But who would be able to hear it? Those young masters wanted to inquire about it, but if they didn't even do the task, why would they give the information to them? Is it because you have money? In a town where you can't even buy a carrot with 500 taels of silver, money is nothing? The errand boy could not understand his young master's lament at all, but the disdain in his tone was vividly displayed. He had experienced this kind of strong self-confidence many times in the Wang family village. He did not expect that his self-confidence would still remain the same on the immortal path. His young master was indeed his young master, he could not help but admire him. According to Wang Lu, the fog on both sides of the valley was a buffer when switching maps. Behind the fog was a brand new test, which was related to whether or not they could enter the inner gate of Lingjian School, Misty Peak. Although the errand boy did not really understand the difference between Carefree Peak and Misty Peak, it seemed that his young master attached great importance to it. That would not be wrong. The range of the fog was much wider than expected. They thought it was just a short buffer, but when they groped their way forward in the fog for a long time and still could not find the way forward, Even Wang Lu was a little hesitant. Young master, could we have gone the wrong way? Nonsense, it's the same path from the beginning to the end. Tell me, where did we go the wrong way? The errand boy wiped the sweat off his head, speechless. Wang Lu was carrying his luggage. Although he had been exercising, he was even more tired now. Therefore, although he was still confident, he slowed down his pace and began to look around. The effective range of vision in the fog was less than 3 meters, and he could not see anything beyond that. Wang Lu only remembered that he was in a valley that was less than 10 meters wide before he entered the fog, and then he went straight ahead. Wang Zhong, let's turn right. That's a cliff. Not necessarily. The errand boy was stunned for a moment, and then he followed Wang Lu to the right. However, he thought that they would bump into a mountain after a few steps. Why? That's strange. I remember that before we entered this fog, the valley on both sides was very long. How come now? We're not in the valley for a long time. The map change was completed unknowingly. I thought that the fog was a buffer, but it seems that it is also part of the map. As Wang Lu spoke, he bent down and picked up the dust under his feet with his fingers. Young master, what's wrong with this soil? How would I know? I'm not a geologist. As Wang Lu spoke, he brushed off the dust on his hands. I thought that I could find some clues from the soil, but it seems that I can't. Wang Zhong suddenly felt a little worried. Young master, is there any danger? Once Wang Lu was not paying attention, the little errand boy felt that the fog around him became ferocious, as if it could swallow him at any time. After all, this immortal path was not prepared for the little errand boy in the Wang village. There's no danger, but there are no clues either. Are we going to be trapped here until we die? Of course not. The lack of clues itself is the biggest clue. As I said, the immortal path tests one's comprehensive qualities, so luck or immortal fate is also an important part. I've experienced it when I was doing the chain tasks. People who cultivate to become immortals value fate very much. That is to say, Wang Lu smiled. In other words, there's actually no wrong way to go on this road. Each direction symbolizes a person's chance. In other words, as long as you identify a direction and go to a certain extent, a new map will appear. Young master, how can you be so sure? Do you still remember what the 2 blue and white guys said? Every blade of grass and every tree is fate. Didn't they say that you can walk any way you want? More importantly, if I were the designer, I would probably do it this way. When I was in Spirit Creek Town, I felt that the designer of the Immortal Ascension Assembly of Lingjian School was quite professional, so it shouldn't disappoint me. As he spoke, Wang Lu suddenly raised his head. His eyes seemed to see through the thick fog and saw the mountain peak standing on the clouds in the distance. Lingjian School, wait for me. At the same time, far above the clouds in the valley, the misty peak was in a mess. What the hell, why is the Punisher Elder here? Hurry up and inform Master and Uncle Zhou Ming to clean up the mess. Black and white over there, go and find the Punisher Elder to stall for time. Senior brother, you're a true disciple, you should go. Come on, the Punisher Elder is even stricter with true disciples. If I go, I'll definitely be locked up until the nascent soul stage. Congratulations, senior brother, you'll soon become a nascent soul stage old monster. Congratulations my ass. I'm only one step away from the Shudan stage. I won't be able to come out of this confinement for at least 100 or 200 years. Stop talking nonsense, go and stop the Punisher Elder. Who wants to stop me? Senior brother Lucien, junior brother Zhou Ming, what are you doing? Who is it? Who is pretending to be junior brother Fang He? How dare you pretend to be the Punisher Elder? I'll report to the sect leader and punish you. If you have the ability, stay here and don't run. Senior brother Lucien, are you done? Also, junior brother Zhou Ming, don't think about using the light shadow sword to escape. I've already set up the star shadow screen, you can't escape. Senior brother Fang He, the sect leader didn't teach you the star sword technique to deal with your fellow disciples. As the Punisher Elder, if I don't punish my fellow disciples, should I punish the people of the Spirit Creek Town? You are all dignified elders of the Heavenly Sword Hall, responsible for supervising the important immortal gathering, but you neglect your duties and openly violate the rules of the sect by gathering people to gamble. You, according to the sect rules, don't even think about leaving the mountain within 100 years. F***ck no way? What version of the sect rules is this? In the Misty Peak, a group of sect elders were quarreling, when suddenly a sword light pierced through the clouds and turned into a black and white disciple who landed on the platform. The disciple had a solemn expression on his face. It was as if he did not see the overturned mahjong table and the sect elder who was arguing until his ears were red. He coldly said, reporting to the elder, "Someone has walked out of the cloud wave map." "What? So fast?" The Misty Peak master, who had been arguing with the disciplinary elder until his ears turned red, was startled. He abandoned the other party and walked to the edge of the cliff. Looking down at the ever-changing clouds, his expression became even more astonished. "It's actually those two." The brilliant peak master, Zhou Ming, quietly tore off the white strip on his face and came over. "What's wrong with those two? You know them? Their results are not bad. To be able to walk out of the cloud wave map in just 4 hours? Wait, only 4 hours?" At this time, even the usually rigid Punisher Elder Fong he could not help but raise his eyebrows. 4 hours? Doesn't that mean they walked out of the mystery without any confusion? The people in the cloud wave map will not only have their 5 senses blocked by the array, but even the flaws in their hearts will be magnified. Unless they have absolute confidence in themselves, they will definitely be lost for a long time. 4 hours and they are moving in a straight line without any twists and turns. What an extreme temperament. Lucien was stunned for a moment. "When was the last time I saw such a fast speed?" Zhou Ming shook his head. "Well, I've never seen it before." "Fong," he said softly, "you've never seen it before?" "Junior brother Zhou Ming, your memory is getting worse and worse. We've all seen the last person who could walk out of the cloud wave map in 4 hours. We've all seen it before? From what I remember, the person with the best performance should be sect leader's senior brother. He also spent more than 8 hours, even more than him," Zhou Ming said with a frown. Suddenly he froze. "Senior brother Fong, could it be that? Who else could it be?" A figure flashed in everyone's mind at the same time and they all sighed. After a long time, Lucien said, "As expected of a talent that even sect leader's senior brother has taken a fancy to. His aptitude is only between the 3rd and 4th grade, but his temperament is probably at the 1st grade. Fong, he shook his head. "We can't make such a conclusion so early. The cloud wave map is only the preliminary test. Temperament is not the only factor that affects the result, but also the opportunity. Let's see what their next test is." "Hey, senior brother, when did your Misty Peak design such a test?" At this time the clouds changed again. In addition to the little cloud people that reflected the master and servant pair, there were also dozens of building protrusions. It turned out to be a small village. Fong He became more and more puzzled. The cloud wave map should be connected to the Red Ridge Mountain, the Frozen Wind Valley, the Blue Cloud Gorge, or the Netherworld Path according to the participant's performance. If you can walk all the way to the end, you will be qualified to enter the Misty Peak. But I don't remember this test. Could it be that senior brother changed the test of the Immortal Gathering? Lucien was also puzzled. "Junior brother, you know me. How could I change the rules of the sect at will?" Fong He glanced at the overturned mahjong table on the side and didn't say anything. Although senior brother made a mistake, he wasn't the type to make decisions without authorization. In other words, "Fifth junior sister, what are you trying to do?" Chapter 9. Young master, there's a village in front of us. After passing through the clouds, a medium-sized village appeared in front of the master and servant. The little errand boy was stunned for a moment, but he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Wang Lu patted him on the shoulder. "What's wrong? Didn't you complain about being thirsty and hungry for a long time? This is a ready-made supply point." The errand boy frowned, his face full of fear. "Young master, don't you think it's strange? Why is there a village here? After walking for 4 hours we're tired and hungry. Of course there should be a village here. Otherwise wouldn't we just starve to death? But, it still feels strange. There's someone in the village?" The errand boy pointed. On a small road in the village, an old woman carrying firewood was walking slowly. Young master, that old woman seemed to be looking at us? So what? Did your heart start beating fast when she saw you? I mean, she's a living person. Nonsense, if not a person then a ghost? I always feel that in this kind of place, meeting ghosts is more normal than meeting people. Then you can go and greet her. Tell her it's an old ghost. Wang Lu sighed. "If you're afraid, then obediently follow me. I think there will be a lot of stories in this village. Take your time, there's no need to rush." The village hidden behind the clouds was not as mysterious and scary as the errand boy had imagined. After talking to the villagers who passed by, they found out that the village was called Peach Blossom Village. The villagers had been living here for thousands of years, not caring about the outside world. The Immortal Mountain was rich in natural resources, and for thousands of years, they lived a rich and comfortable life. The villagers of Peach Blossom Village were very hospitable. At noon on the day they arrived, the village chief hosted a banquet for the master and servant. More than half of the villagers came. The scene was very noisy. Wang Lu and the little errand boy ate heartily, drinking sweet wine made from wild fruits. The tiredness of the cloud wave map was swept away. At the dinner table, apart from eating and drinking, there was only chatting and laughing. According to Wang Lu, this was a great opportunity to gather information. However, the strange thing was that the isolation of the Peach Blossom Village was beyond imagination. Let alone the 9 prefectures, the villagers did not even know that they were in the middle of a celestial mountain. For the villagers, the surrounding green mountains and clear waters were the whole world. What was even more bizarre was that the villagers did not show much curiosity towards the sudden appearance of an outsider. The people were warm and welcoming, but they had no interest in the outside world. What? There are still immortals outside? The flying celestial sword was so powerful. Here, this is the village's specialty yellow croaker. Have a taste. Emperor? What is an emperor? Older than the village chief? What? You have to kneel in front of the emperor? You might even get your head chopped off if you're not careful? What a barbaric village. Why don't you try my wife's steamed buns? That was probably what happened to Wang Lu. Even if they tried to guide them, there was no way to open up the topic. The villagers' thinking was as stubborn as if they had eaten too much guanine clay. At night, the two of them stayed at the village chief's house. The village chief had purposely vacated an empty room in the backyard. The conditions were even better than the rooms at the Ru family inn. However, both the master and servant were somewhat absent-minded. The errand boy felt uneasy. How could there be such a lavish meal on the immortal path? Which of the poor boys in the stories didn't go through untold hardships to become successful? How could they enter the Misty Peak just by eating, drinking, and playing? Weren't the 2 blue and white guys of the Carefree Peak a little too pathetic? As for Wang Lu, he was puzzled by the villagers' reaction during the day. According to the theory of adventurers, if the immortal path was an adventure, then the Spirit Creek town was undoubtedly a beginner's village. The Golden Bridge and Misty Clouds were the first long adventure. After that, the Peach Blossom Village was an important turning point, and it was the beginning of a large number of main and side quests. It was equivalent to the main city in many adventure stories. However, the villagers' closed-minded reaction clearly put an end to any possibility of quests. At the banquet that night, he had talked to most of the villagers, but there was no sign of a quest. TSK, what kind of lousy plot is this? Wang Lu tossed and turned, unable to sleep. It wasn't until the next morning, when Wang Lu was brushing his teeth by the river with a toothbrush, that things took a turn for the better. It's really a small world. Seeing the person who walked out of the forest outside the village, Wang Lu almost swallowed his saliva. Little Hai. Hai Yunfan's smile suddenly became a bit awkward. Little Hai? It's Little Hai then. Brother Wang Lu, I didn't expect to meet you here. Wang Lu put down his toothbrush and said with a puzzled face, I also didn't expect to meet you here. I thought this was a small dungeon, but I didn't expect to meet a passerby like you. Or have we unknowingly formed a team? At the same time, the leader of the Misty Peak was about to go crazy. Where did this Peach Blossom Village come from? Master, even if you ask me that, I can't answer. The black and white disciple, who was being interrogated by the Misty Peak leader, was under great pressure. He almost had to take out the spirit sword on his back to maintain his posture under the pressure of his master. Not long ago, the sect leader's martial uncle's anger had swept through the cloud and mist array. Now Lu Xian seemed to want to compete with him. In his anger, he released the power of his primordial spirit, causing the entire sword-seeking hall to tremble. The sea of clouds around the mountain peak was boiling, as if it was being torn apart by countless invisible hands. And within 100 meters of Lu Xian, no one below the Shudan stage could stand still. Senior martial brother, calm down. Zhou Ming, who was also an elder of the sect, shook his head and patted Lu Xian's shoulder. A cool sword intent seeped into Lu Xian's body. Lu Xian's eyes suddenly became clear. Sorry, I forgot myself. Zhou Ming bitterly smiled. Senior martial brother can't be blamed for being angry. This Peach Blossom Village is really funny. In the beginning he thought that this village was just someone's prank. However, when the second group of people who walked out of the Cloud Wave map were also sent to the Peach Blossom Village, Lu Xian realized that things had gone out of control. A certain person had completely changed the immortal path, and very rudely added an inexplicable village between the Cloud Wave map and the Netherworld path, turning it into an insurmountable obstacle. No matter what choice anyone made in the Cloud Wave map, their next stop would be the Peach Blossom Village. Although, being able to modify the Immortal Ascension Array with the Misty Peak sect as the main body without anyone noticing was indeed an amazing skill, but to use such a talent to cause trouble for the sect was 2F** ket up. Zhou Ming sighed. I wonder what Senior Martial Brother sect leader has to say this time? Lucien coldly snorted, say my ass. After so many years, when has Senior Martial Brother ever said anything to her? Sigh, I don't know what 5th Senior Martial Sister wants to do this time. This Peach Blossom Village is so strange. Lucien was a little impatient, it's probably some prank that no one can understand. Tisk, my genius design is just a prank in your eyes? Senior Martial Brother, your taste in wasting the zither and cooking the crane has never changed. Oh, it's you. Hearing the familiar voice that had appeared in his nightmares countless times, Lucien's calm fighting spirit, which had been nurtured by the famous Misty Immortal Heart, suddenly soared into the sky. The sword in his hand flashed, and a tremendous force that was enough to move mountains and fill up the seas suddenly shot out from the sword. Zhou Ming's eyes lit up. What an angry strike. The power of this gunmetal sword chi has already surpassed the peak of the Yuanying stage. It seems that Senior Martial Brother will be breaking through within the next 50 years. Unfortunately, such a powerful sword chi had met the wrong opponent. The bright, blazing, and incomparably sharp gunmetal sword chi melted like snow in front of the white figure, and silently calmed down. The woman in white who was walking up from the foot of the mountain shook her wrist. Senior Martial Brother, what are you doing? Are you going to demolish it? Lucien had calmed down after the sword strike, but the anger in his heart had not diminished. Look at what you've done. The Immortal Gathering has become a mess. Why do you say that? In order to make the Immortal Gathering more efficient, in order to decorate the Peach Blossom Village, I even used my treasured high-grade spirit stones, which I paid for out of my own pocket. Just now, I applied for overtime pay but it was rejected by Senior Martial Brother. Lucien angrily said, who wants to pay for your nonsense? You need to understand, although the Lingjin School has not held an Immortal Gathering for many years, the procedures have been established hundreds of years ago, and every step has been tempered countless times. Before he could finish, he was mercilessly interrupted, tempered countless times by mediocre people, it's just a mediocre procedure. The Cloud Wave map determines the direction, the Red Ridge Mountain, the Netherworld path, and so on determine the height. The idea is not bad, and it can indeed determine a person's various qualities. But you have been cultivating for hundreds of years, and you are also famous nascent soul stage cultivators. Don't you understand that the most important part of the immortal cultivation is not aptitude or spiritual root, nor is it temperament or luck? Faced with such a righteous rebuttal, Lucien's imposing manner slightly weakened. Then what do you think it is? Of course it's EQ. Now is not the great war of immortals and demons. Today the main theme of the 9 regions is peace and development. Being brave and fierce is already out of date. Making friends is the foundation of the immortal cultivation world. I designed this Peach Blossom Village to test the interpersonal skills of the newcomers. If they can't even get along with the villagers in this simple mountain village, then there's no need to talk about the cruel immortal cultivation world. You guys must know the story of the peerless military god of the Royal Soldier sect 100 years ago, right? TSK, with a cultivation base half a step from the Mahayana stage, he was peerless in the 9 regions. But because he had too many enemies, he was annihilated when the heavenly tribulation came. If you don't have enough EQ, how can you get along? On the side, Lucien and Zhou Ming were dumbfounded. EQ? Make friends? You, a street rat, have the nerve to say such things? Moreover, my Peach Blossom Village is not that simple. The village is the result of the Cloud Wave map, so the challengers will get different starting points. Then, according to their personality and luck, they will trigger different chains of tasks in the village. Depending on the completion of the tasks, they will get different rewards. For example, if the village head's favorability is maxed out, they will get the reward of having their physical strength reduced by half when they enter the Red Ridge Mountain route. Hey, are you guys listening carefully? In the Peach Blossom Village, Hai Yun Fan, who was in a small world, was very envious of Wang Lu's luck. As the second group of people to enter the village from the Cloud Wave map, Hai Yun Fan's treatment was much worse than Wang Lu's. Although he was also warmly received by the villagers, he could forget about having a banquet, and lived in an ordinary house. Especially when he was walking with Wang Lu, the difference was very obvious. The villagers all smiled at Wang Lu, while Hai Yun Fan was like a transparent person. However, when I think about how the people who came later are treated worse than me, I feel a bit better. Wang Lu had a look of disgust on his face. There are more people coming later? Hai Yun Fan laughed. There are at least 50 to 60 people who can walk out of the cloud wave map. However, it seems that the longer it takes, the harder it is to get along in this village. Strange, what's going on with this village? I've never heard of it before. Hearing this, Wang Lu frowned. Hai Yun Fan was too familiar with the Immortal Path. You know about the Immortal Path? I know a little bit about it, including the entire Immortal Gathering. Brother Wang Lu, are you interested in hearing about it? No. Hai Yun Fan was not surprised. Then what do you think about this village? I didn't have any before, but now I have some clues. But I need to wait a little longer to confirm it. Hai Yun Fan nodded. Then I'll leave it to you. I really don't have the confidence to get a good result in this village. Wait, what do you mean by leave it to me? I don't plan on keeping you. Haha, we're friends? Ah, we'll be friends for life. Chapter 10. Not long after Hai Yun Fan entered the Peach Blossom Village, the third group of guests appeared. Not surprisingly, although Hai Yun Fan's talent was outstanding, the Immortal Gathering was a gathering of all the geniuses in the world. Aside from Wang Lu, there were a few people who were as talented as Hai Yun Fan. Therefore, when Hai Yun Fan and Wang Lu were happily chatting, they could already foresee that the Peach Blossom Village was going to be lively. What the hell, what is this place? Shouldn't the Red Ridge Mountain and the Frozen Wind Valley be behind the Cloud Wave map? How did a village appear out of nowhere? This is different from what we agreed on. That afternoon, 3 newcomers appeared in the village one after another. All of them came from cultivation clans, and their clans were all above the 3rd rank in terms of rank. They were all noble and illustrious. Even Hai Yun Fan had to be cautious when he saw them. Not only were these 3 people from illustrious families, they also had outstanding qualifications. Moreover, they were also from the same immortal cultivation clan, so they had signed a mutual assistance agreement with each other. With a strong alliance, they were Hai Yun Fan's biggest opponents. If it weren't for Wang Lu, this extraordinary person who came out of nowhere, Hai Yun Fan would have racked his brains to fight with these 3 people. But now, it was probably not his turn to worry about it. Looking at the 3 people walking together outside the village, Hai Yun Fan sneered in his heart. Soon, there will be a good show to watch. On one side was the unfathomable mountain eccentric Wang Lu, and on the other side was the arrogant immortal cultivator family. It was impossible for this small mountain village to accommodate both sides, so when they met, there would be a thunderstorm. Now that he thought about it, perhaps this was also done on purpose by the Lingjian school? But this had nothing to do with him, so he just hid on the side and watched the show. The good show that Hai Yun Fan was looking forward to did not let him wait for too long. You move out of here. In the backyard of the village chief's house, a young man from the Xia family of the Rain Pavilion pointed at Wang Lu and made a request with disgust. Then, as the recipient, Wang Lu gnawed on the corn and asked in confusion, "Who the hell are you? Are you crazy?" Xia Qianlong was furious and raised his eyebrows. "You dare to be rude to me? Do you know who I am?" Wang Lu slapped the corn and said, "That's why I asked. Are you really King sick?" Xia Qianlong subconsciously put his hand into his pocket, as if he wanted to take something. "I'm the 14th generation descendant of Xia clan in Tingyu Pavilion, Yuzhou Province. Xia, what can I do for you?" Xia, I have something. Xia Qianlong said. "I have something." Xia Qianlong said. Xia 6666 said 67. Diske, you're quite open-minded to say I want to a man. Xia Dong Yang 2 Hai is 67 Yun Fei 2 King Terching King Yun 6 Lu is not no Shan. 1 Xia 7710 1 is Hai is Li Xia Hai E 2. Hai 22222 Sure Hai 2 Hai Dong Terses Xia Qianlong stopped. "You two don't interfere." Wang Lu put the corn back in his mouth and looked at the 3 people who had trespassed into the house with even more puzzlement. He then asked Hai Yun Fan who was following behind them. "Little Hai, what's going on with these 3? Hai Yun Fan cursed his bad luck. He didn't expect that he would be caught by Wang Lu even though he was hiding behind the tree. He had planned to watch the show from the sidelines, but in the end he was caught and turned into an actor. After his whereabouts were exposed by Wang Lu, Hai Yun Fan openly walked out and greeted the 3 scions. Young Master Xie, Young Master Yun, Young Master Li. When the 3 of them saw Hai Yun Fan, they were also shocked. "Hai Yun Fan, it's you?" Wang Lu was surprised as well. "Little Hai, it seems like you don't have much status in their eyes. Hai Yun Fan cursed inwardly. This is the spirit mountain, not under the rule of the mortal world. Plus, with the three of them working together, I, the second prince of the Grand Cloud Empire, don't have any status at all. You are usually slow, but when it comes to making things awkward, you are very sharp. However, Hai Yun Fan was indeed Hai Yun Fan. At such a young age, he was already very shrewd. The youth ignored Wang Lu's question with a smile and said, "Just now, young Master Xia's meaning is that he wants you to move out from the village head's house." Wang Lu left Xia Qianlong and asked Hai Yun Fan why. Hai Yun Fan looked at the three scions. They obviously didn't want to talk to Wang Lu. They were all waiting for his answer. Alright, now that he had seen the stage, he had no choice but to participate. Hai Yun Fan cleared his throat and began to explain. It's simple. Young Master Xia and the others are the descendants of a very famous clan in the immortal cultivation world. They have an illustrious status. As for you, Brother Wang, although you have amazing potential, you are still a person from the mountains. Hearing this, Wang Lu was a little impatient. I don't have any interest in their mother. I don't want to be their stepfather. Why are you talking about the difference in family background? Well, because you are of low birth, you are living in the best place in the village while young Master Xia and the others can only live in ordinary houses. This doesn't make sense. After saying this, Hai Yun Fan added, of course, I'm only responsible for explaining. I don't represent my own views. After making things clear, Hai Yun Fan continued to explain. He remained silent and waited for Wang Lu's reaction. Wang Lu's reaction was a long silence. Xia Qianlong was really impatient. Brat, what do you want? You can't afford to waste our precious time. Wang Lu sneered. I understand now. You are the kind of people who couldn't survive in their families and ran away from home. You want to prove your worth by having a fortuitous encounter. Little Hai, you have all the information. If I'm not wrong, these so-called scions must have a bad life in their families, right? Hai Yun Fan smiled bitterly. How was he supposed to say such offensive words? Let alone to say it was bleak, it was really far from it. To be able to achieve such a result in the Spirit Sword Sect's trial was already a rare genius. However, as Wang Lu said, each of them had their own predicament, which was not what they wanted. Xia Qianlong and the others were already burning with anger. They couldn't bear it anymore. Brat, since you want to die, don't blame us for it. Humph, you're courting death. Do you really think you're extraordinary just because you got a good result in the cloud wave map? The three of them made a fighting stance. Xia Qianlong put his hand into his pocket. The Yun family's son made a sword sign, and the Li family's son stood with his hands behind his back. Hai Yun Fan's heart trembled. These children from the immortal cultivation families are really extraordinary. They all have treasures from their families, and they're all very high-level treasures. What kind of place was the Spirit Sword Mountain? How could they casually bring an immortal cultivation weapon into the mountain? On the Golden Bridge, ordinary magical weapons have already been rejected. To be able to hide from the Golden Bridge and the Cloud Wave map and bring them into the Peach Blossom Village, they were probably not just magical weapons but magical treasures. Even if they were from a third-rank family, magical treasures were not something that could be casually given out. The status of these three children in their families was probably even higher than what was reported in the intelligence reports. However, the most important thing now was that these 11 or 12-year-old children with magical treasures could even annihilate 100 elite soldiers of the Grand Cloud Empire in the blink of an eye. How was Wang Lu going to defend against them? Hai Yun Fan didn't doubt the ruthlessness of Xia Qianlong and the others. Big immortal cultivation families had always regarded human lives like ants. Moreover, the families of these three children were the most outstanding. Although they were barely on the side of the righteous path, they were basically the evil path of the righteous path. In their eyes, people like Wang Lu didn't have any family background, nor did they have any strength. Although he had amazing talent, since he got in the way, the only thing that awaited him was death. As for Wang Lu, he did have all kinds of special abilities, but in the end he was just from a small village. He was still far from being on par with Xia Qianlong and the others. So, what could this fledgling genius do in the face of the imminent threat? As a spectator, Hai Yun Fan was extremely curious. It wasn't that there was no way to stop this fight. Although Xia Qianlong and the others didn't really respect him, as long as he used his trump card, he could still intimidate them for a while. However, Wang Lu wasn't related to him in any way, so there was no reason for him to use his trump card for him, right? Moreover, if he couldn't even get through this situation, then it could only mean that he was wrong about Wang Lu. He wasn't worth paying attention to, let alone befriending. Come on, Wang Lu, tell me your answer. Hai Yunfan stood at the side looking forward to it. Then, he saw Wang Lu calmly tap the table with his hand. Are you guys trying to bully me with numbers? The three children looked at each other, and young Master Yun and young Master Li stopped at the same time. Xie Qianlong was the one who started this, so it was only natural that he would be the one to clean up the mess. Immortals did indeed view mortals as ants, but they still had to abide by the rules. With their status, it was indeed laughable for them to bully someone with numbers. As for Xie Qianlong, he was stunned for a moment before he couldn't help but laugh. Brat, what difference does it make to you? Do you think you have the right to fight me? Wang Lu also laughed. You guys are quite impatient. Actually, what I wanted to say was that it would be best if you guys were willing to bully me with numbers. It's too troublesome to fight one by one, so it's better if you all come at me together. What did you say? Wang Lu's expression also darkened. What I'm saying is that I alone am enough to deal with you bastards. In other words, I only need to say one word to take care of you guys. Such a shocking statement caused the entire room to fall silent for a long time. As a spectator, Hai Yunfan could clearly feel his heartbeat quicken, and a sense of excitement engulfed him. Even if Wang Lu was just bluffing, it was impossible not to be moved by his current attitude. Moreover, Hai Yunfan didn't think that Wang Lu was bluffing. In other words, the three young masters were going to be out of luck. As for Xie Qianlong and the others, they could only feel endless shame and anger. Being humiliated by a person from the mountains. This wasn't just about them, it was also a great humiliation for their families. Wang Lu, you can die 100 times without regrets. Freezing Rain Talisman. Flowing Cloud Formless Sword. Scarlet Blood Essence Chi. The three of them simultaneously took out their magic treasures, and the room was instantly filled with killing intent. Although the three of them hadn't officially stepped onto the path of cultivation and didn't have any cultivation to speak of, they could only unleash a fraction of the power sealed in their magic treasures by their family elders. It was enough to cut Wang Lu into 1,000 pieces. Wang Lu's response was only one sentence. Village chief, someone is causing trouble. Before he finished speaking, a black shadow broke through the window and pounced towards Xie Qianlong and the others. The black shadow moved as fast as lightning, and its fists and legs turned into countless illusions as they flew toward the three of them, accompanied by strange sound effects. Ah, hit, 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 hit. In an instant, blood splattered from their noses. Before the three of them could activate their magic treasures, they were knocked to the ground and lost consciousness. After the black shadow knocked the three of them out, it broke through the window and didn't stay for long, leaving behind only Wang Lu, his servant, and the extremely shocked Hai Yunfan. Then Hai Yunfan clearly heard Wang Lu's disdainful voice. A few trash who only know how to use tools dare to challenge me, a grandmaster who specializes in reporting? They don't know what's good for them. Chapter 11. In the backyard of the village head's villa, the nosebleed had turned into a river. The dark red color made Hai Yunfan's brain somewhat numb. His mouth was dry as he asked, Brother Wang Lu, I wonder if you would like to explain to me what just happened? Although Hai Yunfan could think of more than a dozen possibilities, under the excessive shock, his ability to think had fallen to the bottom line of a human. Wang Lu went to find a mop and a broom, ready to clean up the 3 piles of garbage, and replied, What happened? Isn't it obvious? The valley hero, who lives in seclusion in the Peach Blossom village, successfully crushed the organized and premeditated destruction of a small group of thugs, and protected the peaceful life of the Peach Blossom village. Valley hero? Do you know that person? Probably called ******. To be honest, I don't know him because there's no need to know him. Hai Yunfan calmed down a bit and asked, Because you already knew this would happen? Not too early, just a few hours ago. When I heard from the village head that there had never been a fight in the Peach Blossom village, I realized that this was a peaceful area. Peaceful area? Hai Yunfan was obviously confused by this word, and he tightly frowned. As far as he could remember, there were very few sects that would set up a peaceful zone during their immortal gathering. At least, the 3rd and 4th grade sects in the Grand Cloud Empire liked to let everyone kill each other to form a river of blood when they were recruiting disciples. They used this method to find the most promising newcomers, and the results were quite good. Therefore, the Spirit Sword sect's act of caring for the newcomers in this immortal gathering was very puzzling. For a moment, Hai Yunfan even doubted whether the Spirit Sword sect was sincere in recruiting newcomers. However, after all, they were one of the 5 uniques of the Union of 10,000 Immortals, so they wouldn't play such a joke on the world. Speaking of which, Lingjian School was indeed known for being low-key and tactful, rarely showing off their aggressiveness like the Xingjing sect. Perhaps this was really the style of a sect that was so pure and kind? Pure and kind? Little Hai, look carefully. I haven't even wiped off the blood from my nose yet. Why are you sighing with emotion at my innocence and kindness? Hai Yunfan fell into deep thought as he looked at the three unconscious girls with nosebleeds on the ground. Wang Lu saw that he didn't understand no matter what, so he explained, actually the rule of Lingjian school is very simple. Idiots must die. Oh, where is this place? Feeling a clear chill on his forehead, the Xie family's young master from the rain-listening pavilion woke up. Resuscitation. His head hurt like hell and the bridge of his nose seemed to have been broken. He felt dizzy and his vision was a little blurry. However, he could vaguely see that there seemed to be a fatty sitting in front of him, splashing cold water on him. Who are you? Me. I am Wen Bao, the son of Kanglan State Preceptor Wen Zhong. The man's voice sounded a little frightened, but there was a sense of pride in his tone. Therefore Xie Qianlong felt that it was ridiculous. Why was this fat pig so proud? Did he really think that he was a human being in a small third-rate country? Did he know that even the second prince of the Grand Cloud Empire had to bow his head in front of an immortal cultivation family? Yet this pig actually dared to show off his identity in front of him? Thinking of this, the evil fire in his heart gradually ignited. The humiliation of losing to Wang Lu just now welled up in his heart. His fingers once again reached into his inner pocket and touched the magical treasure bestowed by his family. As for Wen Bao, he was completely unaware of the upcoming crisis. While splashing cold water on the two companions of the Xie family, he chuckled and said while shaking his double chin. I just came out of that cloud of fog and while I was scratching my head, I saw the three of you fainting on the riverside. Is the next test very difficult? I think it's better if the four of us work together. That way we might have a better chance of passing the test. Previously, when we were in the cloud of fog, I thought that if we could have a few more people, perhaps we wouldn't be trapped for so long. Wen Bao obviously didn't realize the real intention of the Spirit Sword Mountain's cloud wave map. He thought that he was smart enough to talk incessantly, but he didn't know that the more he acted, the more disgusted the Xie family's young master became. While he was talking, Wen Bao saw the two people next to the Xie family move and sit up. You guys are awake? Wen Bao beamed with joy. If he could successfully work together with these three people, he would have a better chance of passing the next test. Previously, he had refused the Carefree Peak's invitation and resolutely continued on this immortal cultivation path. As a result, in the cloud wave map, he didn't know how many times he regretted his decision. Now he had no other choice but to continue forward. However, after a moment of joy, Wen Bao was stunned. He clearly saw that the Xie family's three people's eyes were not friendly. Although they had just woken up, their faces were pale, but the malice in their eyes was chilling. What's wrong with you guys? Don't you want to work together? Then I'll take my leave. Although he was clumsy, Wen Bao felt that if he stayed any longer, he would end up in a bad situation. Therefore he got up and was about to leave. Want to leave? Do you think you can? Xie Qianlong stood up. He had originally planned to use the frozen rain talisman on Wang Lu, but now he held it between his fingers, ready to vent his anger. Yun and Li were the same. They wanted to use Wen Bao as a sacrifice. The blue and white disciples in front of the Carefree Peak had clearly said that on the immortal cultivation path, one's life and death depended on fate. This small fry had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he deserved to be killed. Furthermore, killing one's competitors on the immortal cultivation path was an unavoidable bad habit in the current immortal cultivation world. Even the righteous sects in the Wanxian League would inevitably have their disciples kill each other when they held events like the Immortal Gathering. This was something that the disciples of the aristocratic families knew very well. Even if it was Xie, Yun, and Li, these three people, dying in the Grand Immortal Ascension Assembly wouldn't be considered strange. Then what difference was there between killing the son of Navy Tide Nation's state preceptor and stepping on an ant? The power of the three magic treasures made Wen Bao instinctively feel that death was approaching. This son of the state preceptor did not have the mental fortitude of Wang Lu. In his shock, he opened his mouth and screamed wildly. Help, help, help. The hysterical cries for help made Xie Qianlong feel slightly better. If the person being killed did not struggle, then this game would be meaningless. Even so, his killing intent did not diminish in the slightest. Scream all you want, I don't believe that there is anyone here who can stop me. Xie Qianlong sneered. He began to gradually increase the strength of the talisman in his hand. At this moment, a black shadow fell from the sky. Hit. Bao, who had just escaped death, felt that his back and pants were soaked. The black shadow came and left swiftly, and it even vanished without a trace before Bao could say thank you to Bao. Bao's heart still trembled with fear as he looked at the three young masters who were unconscious and lying by the side of the river waiting for death. Just now he was only a moment away from death. Those three people had no enmity with him, but they inexplicably tried to kill him. Bao still could not understand what he had done to deserve the wrath of the heavens. Was it just because he was ugly? That's why the lady boss of the Ru family and kicked him so hard, why he was stepped on by the flock of young masters on the Golden Bridge, and why he was looked at with disdain by those two blue and white guys in front of the carefree peak. Or was this the true face of the immortal path? Killing, plundering. The immortal path was ethereal, but it was not as real as the corpses lying on the ground. He came all the way from his hometown to the Spirit Sword Mountain in order to help his father take another step forward. However, before he left, no one was optimistic about his future. Now, Bao vaguely realized the reason. As the son of the state preceptor, not only did he not have his father's knowledge, he was not even good at the common ways of the world. The only thing he could rely on was the praise of an immortal master who passed by the Kanglan country when he was young. This child is destined to be an immortal. He can be one of us. Unfortunately, that immortal master never appeared again, and Bao spent his long childhood under his father's disappointed gaze. While he was still lost in thought, the sound of footsteps made Bao's whole body tremble. His legs, which had just recovered a bit of strength, began to soften again. After experiencing the baptism of the Xie family's young masters, Bao had become extremely nervous. He knew that he did not even have the strength to truss a chicken, let alone a few more Xie family's young masters. Even if a wild boar came out of the bushes, he would still be finished. Hey, where did this Marshal Tianpeng come from? The voice that entered his ears was 30% surprised and 70% mocking. It was not polite, but to Bao, it inexplicably had the power to make him feel at ease. Bao breathed a sigh of relief as the voice rang in his ears again. How could this guy appear here? Logically speaking, he should have been eliminated on the Golden Bridge. Brother Wang, you don't know. The word immortal fate has always been mysterious and unpredictable. Many extraordinarily intelligent people are not fated to become immortals, but there are a lot of idiots and mediocre people in the mortal world who have good aptitude for cultivation. This Bao, it seems like he belongs to the latter group. That makes sense. Those three good-for-nothings brains were only the size of melon seeds, but they were also the children of some aristocratic families. This makes the future of the entire immortal cultivation world not optimistic. Haha, they're only from a third or fourth rank aristocratic family, they're not that great. The two people who came from afar talked and laughed as they walked in front of Bao, sizing him up. Bao was also sizing up the two people. Although his memory was mediocre, Bao could still recognize these two people. One was the second prince of the Grand Cloud Empire, and the other was the only mountain boy who stayed in the best room in the inn. In short, they were both important people that he could not afford to offend. Resisting the dryness in his throat, Bao asked, "Excuse me, you guys?" However, Wang Lu and Hai Yunfan completely ignored him and continued to talk. "Little Hai, this guy is the seventh person to enter the Peach Blossom Village. His result is not bad, right?" Hai Yunfan thought for a moment and said, "The seventh place is not too good, but considering that you and your errand boy took up 2 places, the ranking itself is meaningless. Also, he only took a dozen or so hours to get out of the cloud wave map, which can be considered excellent. Unlike his stupid appearance, he has a good temperament that is worthy of praise." "Good temperament, my ass, little Hai, you're too naive. To be able to get out of the cloud wave map so quickly doesn't mean that he has a good temperament. I'm guessing that this guy had a nervous breakdown after getting lost, and ran out crying while holding his head." "That's impossible? How is it impossible? Didn't the ancients always say that a pig is brave when it makes a sudden move?" It can be seen that for him, running in one direction is his specialty. Wang Lu's conjecture was simply nonsense, but from Bao's expression, Hai Yunfan could deduce that Wang Lu had probably guessed the truth. It turned out that there really was such a way to get through the cloud wave map that made people speechless. But then again, this was also a kind of immortal fate. In the cultivation world, there was no lack of people who did not have the aptitude, temperament, and even their IQ was lower than that of ordinary people. Then, could it be that this Bao had the chance to become a peerless expert in the cultivation world in the future? Just as he was thinking, he heard Wang Lu say, "Little Hai, weren't you always curious about the strategy to enter the Peach Blossom Village? Now we have a good demonstration material here." You mean Wenbao? Of course this guy has neither the IQ nor the guts. He's the perfect candidate to enter the Peach Blossom Village. Ah? What? Because it won't hurt if you break it, ha. Chapter 12. Bringing Wenbao home did not take much effort from Wang Lu. After experiencing a near-death experience by the river, Wenbao no longer had any confidence in this immortal path. Now, as long as he could survive until the end, he would already be thankful. Therefore, when Wang Lu smiled and said to him, "Are you interested in cooperating with me to conquer the Peach Blossom Village?" Wenbao agreed without any hesitation. Firstly, he really had no other choice. The wet pants on his body was enough to prove the result of walking on the immortal path alone. Secondly, what if there was a chance that he could pass this test? Deep in his heart, Wenbao's yearning for the immortal path had not been extinguished. The only thing that puzzled him was why there was a need for a genius like Wang Lu to cooperate with him. Apart from his fat body, what other advantages did he have? Fat is an advantage. Fat people are usually harder to play with. Wenbao was inexplicably frightened. Don't be afraid. At least in this test, the designer did not intend to kill anyone. The village was not designed to let us compete with brute force. Lingjian School is testing a more important quality. Wenbao was a little confused. A more important quality? Hai Yunfan had also been thinking about this question. Nowadays, when the major sects recruited disciples, they needed to test their aptitude, temperament, perception, and luck. Other than that, what else did they need? At this time, Wang Lu had already begun to assign tasks to Wenbao. "Fatty, I have a favor to ask of you." Wenbao said in surprise, "What do you want me to do?" "First, talk to everyone in the village. As for the specific method, you can ask them what they need help with. Remember to be friendly and sincere. Finally, report your harvest to me." It's very simple, right? After sending Wenbao away, Wang Lu invited Hai Yunfan to eat lunch. The two of them casually chatted at the table, calm and leisurely. In the time it took to eat, Hai Yunfan had already understood something. The key is the people. Indeed, wealth, companions, methods, and places are the second most important. It's just that no sect has ever set up such a test before. Wang Lu was a little surprised. Never before? At the very least, as far as I know, no sect has ever really paid attention to this point. The path of immortality is ultimately a lonely one. Too much entanglement in interpersonal relationships will hinder the pace of cultivation. It seems that most sects say this. Wang Lu snorted disdainfully. Isn't that nonsense? The immortal cultivation world isn't a place where lunatics can get along. Even if one's personal strength decides everything, before your cultivation decides everything, it's impossible to do without interpersonal relationships. Unless the legendary Heaven Luo Supreme Immortal descended to the lower realm, there was no such thing as an invincible cultivator in this world. Speaking of which, little Hai, don't you want to go out and try your luck with Wenbao? You might even get an A-level mission. Haha, forget it. Brother Wang, you didn't even end up in the end. There must be a reason, right? Wang Lu said, "Of course, I don't have enough experimental materials, and I'm not confident that I can find a perfect strategy. That's why I'm advising you. Do you want to come down and give me a try? When I get the perfect strategy, I'll remember to thank you." Hai Yunfan was immediately deeply impressed by Wang Lu's loyalty. However, what he cared more about was Wang Lu's so-called perfect strategy. There was perfection, but there was also imperfection. So, in the Peach Blossom Village, we have to be careful with our words and actions. Otherwise, we might make a mistake. Wang Lu laughed. Yes, this is also in line with the characteristics of immortality. On the path of cultivation, as long as you take a wrong step, you can't go back. The design is very realistic. While the two were talking, Wenbao came back. So fast. Hai Yunfan was stunned for a moment. It had only been an hour since Wenbao was kicked out of the house by Wang Lu. Could it be that something unexpected had happened? It was a big surprise. Brother Wang. Wenbao was stunned for a moment outside the door. He shyly called Wang Lu Brother Wang. What's wrong? Did you encounter a particularly interesting plot? I didn't go out for long before I was stopped by an auntie. She said that I looked very much like her dead grandson. After nagging me for a long time, she finally gave me a lot of snacks and invited me to her house at night. I couldn't take too much, so I came back first. While talking, Wenbao took out a huge bag. Opening the bag, a mountain of snacks covered the table, and a burst of mixed fragrance wafted into the air. The little errand boy who was cleaning the table turned around and saw that the snacks looked familiar. Ah, these are snacks from the snack shop Auntie Lu. Because it's very troublesome to make, she usually doesn't sell them. Only people who have a good relationship with her will give her one or two. This. Wang Lu sighed. She treats Wen Bao like her own grandson. This fatty is really lucky to have triggered a high-level quest. If I remember correctly, when Auntie Lu was young, she seemed to have an ambiguous relationship with the village head. The little errand boy was shocked. Young master, don't talk nonsense. Auntie Lu is a decent person. Decent people can't have an affair? What kind of logic is that? This is a speech that violates human rights. What? Didn't you notice last night at the banquet? The village head and Auntie Lu were flirting with each other, and in the end his wife kicked him. That's an important detail. The errand boy was dumbfounded. At the banquet, he didn't even have enough time to fend off the wine, and he was already dizzy from drinking the rice wine. How could he have the time to watch the old men and women cheat on each other? Wang Lu smiled at Wen Bao. Congratulations, this is most likely an A-level quest. It's enough to shake the entire main storyline of the Peach Blossom Village. If you can make it to the end. Although he didn't know what an A or B level quest was, hearing Wang Lu say it so seriously, Wen Bao's eyes lit up. If I can make it to the end, then you'll have a grandmother who is good at making snacks. So, for the sake of my god-grandmother, please work hard and walk down this path for me. After saying that, Wang Lu lifted his foot and kicked. That night, more and more people walked out of the cloud wave map. Of course, after more than a day of wandering, most of them were exhausted. However, unlike when Wang Lu first arrived, the villagers gave him a warm welcome. For these newcomers, the people of the Peach Blossom Village were much colder. Was there anything to eat? Yes, there was a place to stay, but there was also money. But nothing was free. What was worse was that the outside world's currency system did not work here. What is this? This is a gold ingot? Gold ingot? Is it edible? Well, swallowing gold is equivalent to suicide. You want to use this kind of poison to buy my steamed buns? Dream on. Hey, there seems to be a problem with your way of thinking. Conversations like this were common. The villagers were not interested in gold and silver at all, which made many young masters who relied on their wealth fail miserably. But soon, some people found a currency that could be used here. That was labor. Want to eat? That's easy. Help me get rid of the weeds in the backyard and then fill up the water tank at the door. As long as they put in enough labor, they would be rewarded by the villagers. Whether it was the sweet and fragrant farmhouse food or the simple but warm bedroom, they could only get it through labor. In fact, this rule did not only apply to the young masters who participated in the trial, but also to the people of the Peach Blossom Village. In addition to bartering, the villagers also used labor to exchange for what they needed. For this kind of primitive village, where even the monetary system hasn't been born yet, the young masters could only helplessly accept the reality. These young nobles picked up their hoes, picked up their poles, and enthusiastically threw themselves into the agricultural production. In Wang Lu's words, it was necessary to let these young nobles receive the education of the poor and lower middle class. In this situation, the treatment of Wang Lu and the others was like a nail in the eyes of the others. Especially when most of the people were still struggling to survive, Wang Lu had already commanded Wen Bao to fight bravely on the main quest. On the morning of the third day, Wen Bao had already kowtowed to Auntie Lu's adoptive grandmother. In Wang Lu's words, this was like a flag being pushed down. Hey, Fatty is going very well, but the others have already noticed his actions. The imitators will soon start to act. Wang Lu was lying on the bench next to the dining table and said casually, but I didn't intend to hide it. The more people participating in the Peach Blossom Village, the better. It's best to activate every villager's quest. Only then will I be able to grasp the perfect strategy. Hai Yunfan said, but doing this is equivalent to giving away all the opportunities to others. I don't have Brother Wang's insight, but according to common sense, the quest you mentioned should be unique. For example, Auntie Lu will not accept a second grandson, so her resources will be monopolized by Wen Bao. If Brother Wang's perfect strategy needs Auntie Lu's help, how are you going to do it? Hey, that's my problem. Or do you also want to walk the perfect strategy? Hai Yunfan shook his head and denied, I never pursue perfection. As long as I find a suitable position for myself, I will be successful. I like this sentence. In the future, if I get F***ed by someone, I can use this sentence to calm the situation. Then, in return, I might as well tell you one more thing. The climax of the Peach Blossom Village is yet to come. Do you think Wen Bao is progressing smoothly? Tonight he will definitely come back crying. Whoa, Lord Wang Lu, please help me. That night, when Bao's crying was so loud that no one could sleep. Damn it, why are you crying? Although he had expected such a scene, he couldn't help but get angry when someone woke him up in the middle of the night. When Bao didn't realize it and kept crying. Lord Wang Lu, I'm in trouble. Auntie Lu, Wang Lu interrupted him with a loud shout, shut up, don't talk for now. I'm going to find a rod and give you a plastic surgery. When Bao was taken aback. Seeing that Wang Lu was really going to grab the door latch and was about to swing it, he hastily wiped away his tears and snot and said, Auntie Lu and the village head's wife are fighting. The village head's wife can't beat Auntie Lu, so she wants to vent her anger on me, saying that she wants the village head to drive me out of the village. Mr. Wang Lu, save me. Save your sister. Just get lost. If you can't even solve this kind of problem, what use are you? But that's the village head's wife. Perhaps it was because he had been kicked too hard by the lady boss at the Ru family inn, but a seed of fear had already been planted in Wen Bao's heart. Although there were many small villages like the Peach Blossom Village in Kanglan Country, and Wen Bao could destroy the entire village with just a frown, but on this immortal path, Wen Bao had already regarded himself as a maggot. You useless thing, so what if she's the village head's wife? She can't even control her own man, so she's not even as good as an inflatable doll. Why are you afraid of an inflatable doll? You can't say that. You can say that. Do you think the Peach Blossom Village quest is that simple? You want a god-grandmother, eat snacks every day, and you think you can pass the quest? You think too highly of the designer. Let me tell you, you're lucky to have encountered such a confrontational plot at a certain stage of the mission. My good-for-nothing errand boy began to fight with the brats of the same age in the village 2 days ago. Hearing this, Wen Bao was stunned. Ah, my ass. I've already said that the Peach Blossom Village tests one's EQ, and the most effective way to measure EQ is not to see how many people a person can please, but how they deal with those who hate them. Speaking of which, I'd like to add one more thing. My personal guess is that the designer of the Peach Blossom Village is probably not very popular in Lingjian school. Just as Wang Lu finished speaking, he suddenly froze and looked up at the sky. It seemed like an illusion, but he felt like there were many people cheering for his words above the clouds. Well said. We've been looking forward to her heavenly tribulation for a long time. Shaking his head, Wang Lu dispelled the illusion from his mind and said, You're taking the route of Auntie Lu, so the biggest test is the village head's wife. Once you solve this problem, the main quest is basically completed, and you can proceed to the next part. So, wipe your snot off your face and get out of here as soon as possible. With that, Wang Lu lifted his foot again. Chapter 13. After dealing with Wen Bao once again, Wang Lu's face darkened. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Behind him, Hai Yunfan's relaxed voice came into his ears. Wang Lu just coldly snorted, There's nothing wrong, it's just that the plot is a little more troublesome than I expected. I thought that the villagers were all brainless, but it seems that the intelligence of the key characters is not low. To put it simply, the quests in the Peach Blossom Village are supposed to be about increasing the favorability of certain villagers, but the process of the quest will inevitably be accompanied by confrontations. For example, Wen Bao's opponent is the village head's wife. I originally thought that the confrontations would be relatively rigid, but now it seems that the high-level characters are very flexible, and not the type that can be mindlessly dealt with. Although I don't quite understand, you seem to be saying that most of the quests actually have simple solutions? Wang Lu said, Of course. In a low-level task, as long as you find a pattern, it's very easy to increase your favorability. For example, that scholar in the village which I asked Wang Zhong to deal with, as long as he continues to get good grades in class and avoids conflicts with his classmates, he will eventually be able to pass the task smoothly. Now there are even quests like the Steam Bun Shop. As long as you work in the shop and make enough contributions, you will also be able to pass the quest. But for Wen Bao it's different. If you want to increase favorability with Auntie Lu, you can't just call her Grandma a few times. Wen Bao's luck is not bad and he received an A-level quest, but with his IQ and EQ, I'm afraid he won't be able to complete it. Hearing you say that, even I can't help but feel a little nervous. But then again, the more difficult the quest, the greater the reward. This principle should be correct, right? Yes, this principle has always been there. For example, my grades in the Cloud Wave map were the best, so the Peach Blossom Village gave me the same treatment as the village head's godfather. So, if I can get a perfect evaluation for this quest, I should be able to get a corresponding reward for the next quest. Hai Yunfan nodded. According to the usual practice, after the cloud wave map is the Red Ridge Mountain, the Frozen Wind Valley, and several other locations. Each of these locations is the core of the Immortal Path. If according to what Brother Wang said, the grades here will affect the starting point of the next quest, then I think it's time for me to try my hand. After watching the show for so long, you finally have the heart to go on stage? For the past few days, Brother Wang has been explaining the strategy of this village to me every day. No matter what, I should have some confidence. Otherwise, wouldn't I be letting down your painstaking efforts these few days? Then, do you want to try the perfect strategy? Haha, then leave it to a genius like Brother Wang. As for me, I just need to find a suitable position. After Hai Yunfan finished speaking, he finally walked out of Wang Lu's room. As Wang Lu's guest for the past few days, he had been freeloading food and drinks in the village head's backyard like a child bride. However, he couldn't stay in the room forever as a spectator. After watching Hai Yunfan leave, Wang Lu regained his smile. TSK, little Hai has finally entered the stage. There will be a good show to watch next. The entrance of Hai Yunfan was a big shock to the Peach Blossom village. Apart from Wang Lu and his servant, Hai Yunfan was the first person to walk out of the cloud wave map and enter the Peach Blossom village. His result was even better than the 3 disciples from the aristocratic families, which surprised many people. On the path of immortal ascension, there were many people with great magical powers. Some people might not have the legendary heavenly spiritual root, but there were a few people with earthly spiritual roots and mutated spiritual roots. Compared to them, the second prince of the Grand Cloud Empire was not outstanding. Before he climbed the mountain, the cultivation sects of the Grand Cloud Empire had already appraised him, and his result on the Golden Bridge could not be said to be particularly good. His aptitude was above second rate, and his spiritual root was at the peak of 4th grade, which could barely be considered as 3rd grade. However, after the cloud wave map, Hai Yunfan had completely reversed the situation and became the best among the participants. In the eyes of those who knew the ropes, this was enough to raise his evaluation by several levels. Spiritual root or intelligence, which was more important. In the cultivation world, this had not been decided, but among the elders of the Wanxian League, more than half of them had spiritual roots of 3rd grade or below. Therefore, although Hai Yunfan's 3rd grade spiritual root was not good, when combined with the first-rate mentality shown in the cloud wave map, he had a bright future that was comparable to that of the elders of the Wanxian League. Such a person would be valued by any sect. Not to mention, for the past 2 days, Hai Yunfan had been hiding in Wang Lu's room, plotting with the mysterious man who was recognized as the most mysterious person. Now that Hai Yunfan had entered the stage, not only did it mean that he himself was here, but it also meant that Wang Lu was behind him. The combination of the two naturally caused a commotion. The participants all stopped what they were doing and began to wait and see what would happen next. However, Hai Yunfan himself did not cause a commotion immediately. That night, he only wandered around the village casually, chatting with the villagers casually. This step was not unusual. Most of the previous trial takers had done the same. As they were not sure where their opportunity lay, they used this method of casting a wide net to communicate with everyone and observe their reactions to determine the next step of the plan. Hai Yunfan's opportunity was obviously not as exaggerated as Wen Bao's. After one night, although there were a few villagers who expressed interest in him, they were basically passers-by. Hai Yunfan was obviously not satisfied. The humility he showed in front of Wang Lu was respect for the strong, but Hai Yunfan never undervalued himself. He said that it would be fine as long as he found a suitable position, but his position was obviously not limited to B-grade or C-grade missions. However, after one night, Hai Yunfan realized that he was not as lucky as Wen Bao. The so-called opportunity could not fall from the sky, he could only fight for it himself. Therefore, the next morning, although he had not slept all night, Hai Yunfan was full of energy and knocked on the door of the village chief's house under the surprised gazes of countless people. According to Wang Lu's classification of the missions in the Peach Blossom village, the village chief's mission was undoubtedly an A-grade or above mission. After all, Wen Bao was only involved in the emotional dispute between the village chief's wife and the mistress, which was already an A-grade mission. So what if he directly found the village chief? The village chief did not have any special preference for Hai Yunfan, but it did not matter. Hai Yunfan entered the house early in the morning and only came out in the afternoon. He went directly to the backyard and found Wang Lu. "Hey little Hai, you stayed in the old man's room for a long time, how was it?" Hai Yunfan's face, which had been tense for the whole day, finally showed a trace of a smile. "Not bad. According to what you said, I have already obtained a key breakthrough." You were broken through by that old man? As expected of little Hai, such a handsome young man. Although I don't know what you're talking about, I'm sure you've misunderstood. I just want to confirm something with you. Seeing that Hai Yunfan was serious, Wang Lu put down the chicken leg in his hand and said, "Go ahead. My mission is likely to interfere with Wen Bao, or even more people. I think you don't mind, right? Tell me in detail." Hai Yunfan said, "Directly speaking, I intervened in the village chief's family dispute. I spent the whole morning gaining the village chief's trust. I am confident that I will be able to control the development of the following events." Wang Lu's eyes widened in disbelief. "Little Hai, you are really amazing. At such a young age, you have already begun to mediate the emotional disputes of the uncles and aunties who are going through menopause. In the future you will definitely become the queen of the harem." He is just the village chief of a small village, so it is not difficult to persuade him. But as for what to do next, I need to confirm with Brother Wang. The current situation is that because of Wen Bao's unexpected appearance, the long-sealed conflict between Madame He Lu, the village chief's wife, and Auntie Lu has suddenly erupted. My current mission is to calm the conflict between the two so that the village chief can continue to live a peaceful life. But the way to calm the conflict is very interesting. Wang Lu nodded approvingly. "Little Hai, you are gradually getting the hang of it." "You flatter me. I just thought of a few plans. The simplest one is to persuade Madame He Lu to let go of the grudges of her youth. After all, no matter what the village chief did back then, Madame He Lu and the village chief have been relying on each other for so many years. Auntie Lu is just a small interlude, a spice." Wang Lu smiled, "But if you really do that, you will only get 60 out of 100 points?" Hai Yunfan said, "Because the village chief has not let go of Auntie Lu. He is very disgusted by Madame He Lu's noise. And Auntie Lu is not a person who is willing to be alone." Wang Lu added, "But this is only his own selfish desire, and it is not justified." Hai Yunfan said, "So the next step is to coerce Auntie Lu into giving up voluntarily. After all, this happened because of her. As long as she is willing to let go, the village chief's life can really return to normal. But this is not only much more difficult, but it also conflicts with Wen Bao's mission. If Auntie Lu really gives up, her long-cherished wish of many years will not be fulfilled. Wen Bao's godson is likely to be caught in the crossfire." Wang Lu said, "Yes, there are likely to be conflicts between A-level missions, or in other words, there must be conflicts. So the coordination and communication between the trial takers is also a part of the test. But fortunately your target this time is Wen Bao, so there is nothing you can't do, ha." "Wait, Brother Wang, is Wen Bao not worth a bit in your eyes?" Wang Lu spread out his hands. "This has nothing to do with me. I am thinking from your point of view. I think he is not worth a bit in your eyes, so I gave you such a considerate suggestion. Also, it is not easy to solve Wen Bao's problem. At worst, he and Auntie Lu can have a sunset romance to fill the emotional gap. It will be a piece of cake to pass the test. So, back to the topic, what do you want to choose?" Hai Yunfan said, "I don't want to choose either of the above two methods, but there is a third plan and I want to ask for your opinion." "The third plan?" "It is to frame Madame He Lu, so that the village chief can divorce her justifiably and get back together with Auntie Lu. In this way, Wen Bao's mission will be successfully completed, and the village chief's long-cherished wish will be fulfilled. I believe he will give me a very high evaluation. The whole process will not be difficult, but—" Wang Lu tilted his head, But this is not the behavior of a decent person. If it was in a school with strict rules, just coming up with this plan would be a crime, so I need to confirm the thoughts of the designer of the Peach Blossom Village. Brother Wang, in your opinion, will my plan be approved by him?" Wang Lu pondered for a while. "If I were the designer, I would definitely give a high score of 90 or above. And then it is not my responsibility. The checkpoint has been designed and the scores have been given. What else do you want?" Hai Yunfan said with a smile, "Thank you for reminding me, Brother Wang. It was my thoughtlessness. No matter how this strange designer thinks, the final decision is still the Spirit Sword sect, a righteous sect. Therefore, I don't want to use a crooked method. Finally, Brother Wang, if it were you, what would you do?" "Me? Are you interested in the perfect strategy?" Hai Yunfan said, "I have already decided on my method and I will not waver. But I am really curious, if it were you, what would you do?" Hai Yunfan's words were sincere. His pride as a member of the royal family made it impossible for him to copy other people's ideas, even if the other person was Wang Lu, who he deeply recognized. But on the other hand, he was indeed curious about the next step. In other words, he was not ashamed to ask. And Wang Lu did not intend to hide it. It's very simple. Convince Madame He Lu and Auntie Lu to have sex with each other, and then the village chief can enjoy the happiness of having 2 wives. What do you mean by that hemorrhoid expression? What's wrong with my plan? Each of the 3 of them will have 1 less enemy and 1 more lover. They will also be able to let go of their old grudges. While they still have energy, they can enjoy the last few years of happiness and solve all their conflicts perfectly. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.